Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Hope everybody's having a good day. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Howdy, howdy. All right, let's check some notifications. All right. Welcome. Howdy. I'm a little sleepy. So, you know, aside from that, though, I'm good. You can grab a nice coffee. No, I don't drink coffee in the morning. I only drink coffee around noon. Welcome all the verts and the whores and the TikTokers. Howdy, howdy. Get our notes pulled up. Why only in the afternoon? Otherwise I feel jittery. You're a smart guy. I'm surprised you side with libtards. Oh, okay, I guess we're doing that. So to be clear, like generally most educated people are on the left. That's like a well-known trend. If you think that like smarter means more likely to side with the right, you should look at the sociological data. It's very, you might find it very interesting. All right, we should bring up our first guest. Let me just double check to make sure that the guest box is in the right place. I think it should be like right about there. All right, let's bring up Christian Lane. Christian Lane, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm doing A-okay, Christian. Christian, I have a few questions if you don't mind me asking before we get started.
Okay.
So first things first, would you say that you were MAGA?
MAGA being supporting the Make America Great Again movement?
Yeah, you know, like the general movement, the ideology, you know, whatever you might call it.
I wouldn't say I'm a part of the cult, but I'm definitely support Make America Great Again. Sure.
Okay. Would you say that you think that climate change is A, happening, and B, if it is happening, that humans are the main cause of it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you say that the vaccines that we typically administer to children, these are like the ones that, you know, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis B, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
Yeah.
Okay. And would you say that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Now, with that, I'm going to say no. I don't necessarily hold that view.
Okay, right. Okay, so
now, I'm not rejecting it, but I that's just not my.
No, that's fine. And like, look, I'm just taking like it's just a really informal like survey, just because I'm interested in what people have to say that talk to me. Anyway, so look, my claim is that MAGA as a movement, not MAGA people individually, but MAGA as a movement is anti-science, meaning that it frequently rejects and delegitimizes mainstream scientific consensus across multiple domains when it conflicts with the ideological viewpoint, and it regularly undermines institutions and procedures that produce knowledge. Would you say that you disagree?
I would say I would disagree because that's a gross generalization.
We're talking about a movement here, not about people.
Right, but I would still disagree because I don't think that's the movement is rejecting scientific consensus. I think certain people are, because they're afraid if they accept scientific consensus, then they have to change their whole view.
So you would say that, would you say that that the MAGA movement, as far as policymakers are concerned, are undermining institutions and procedures that produce that knowledge, that produce that scientific knowledge?
Which ones, to be specific? Because I know all of them are not.
Well, I mean, like, Donald Trump being the head of the MAGA movement is certainly doing that, or would you say that he's not?
No, I'm okay with saying that he is.
Okay. Would you say that RFK is?
Yeah, if anybody, definitely RFK.
Would you say that there are school boards across the country that are MAGA aligned that are doing that by censoring textbooks?
Now that might be a little bit of a stretch. I don't know that I can agree with that one fully.
I mean,
sure there are some.
Surely you understand. And this was like breaking news as of like earlier this week. Are you familiar with Texas A&M, that university?
I am, yes.
Did you hear the story about how the administration forced a philosophy professor to no longer teach Plato for ideological reasons?
No, actually, it wasn't. I actually didn't hear that.
Yeah, so there was a philosophy professor who was teaching Introduction to Modern Moral Philosophy, I think. And as part of a administrative review of the curriculum of the curricula that they're teaching at the university, the administration or some bureaucrat in the university administration sent him an email saying he can no longer teach Plato's Symposium because it contains discussion of gender.
No, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, this is not like the only time that this has happened. There was a lawmaker in, like a state lawmaker in Arizona who proposed a bill to start teaching intelligent design in schools, which is a great example of undermining the scientific body of knowledge that we have access to. This is actually a very common occurrence. I imagine that you probably remember this from in the last few decades. I don't know how old you are, but the fight to put intelligent design into schools or to remove evolution from schools is another great example of this. And it's, being carried, the torch of that is being carried by the right-wing conservative movement that typically is associated with MAGA. So it seems like that it's not just Trump, it's not just Trump's cabinet. It seems like it's basically a common occurrence across the entire policy-making body of the MAGA movement.
So I a couple things there. I would say the state leaders and the lawmakers are completely independent of Trump or the MAGA movement. Although they may support it, I think they're completely independent and they don't represent the movement as a whole.
So to be clear, who does represent the movement?
I think who is directly at the top.
Yeah,
So we'll say Trump and
Donald Trump and his cabinet?
Yeah. and
Okay,
his
so,
cabinet.
and you agreed that Donald Trump and his cabinet are undermining the scientific institutions and procedures that we use, right?
I
So
would say
it seems like that's satisfied.
RFK, maybe with vaccines, but I think he also just has his personal opinions. I don't think he's saying, look, you guys don't need to believe in this. I think he's saying, personally, I think it's stupid, and I'm going to, because what he does as a politician, he, and as a leader, he's going to implement what he thinks is the best. So he's not saying everybody completely reject this. He's saying, I'm rejecting this, and I'm going to put my policy in place. But
Sorry, I'm not talking about like his opinions. I'm talking about like the actions of the leaders. Like I'm talking about like the way that defunding is happening.
Well, defunding as in what's being defunded?
For example, Donald Trump's 2026 fiscal budget or fiscal year budget for NASA, the National Science Foundation, the CDC, the National Institute of Health, all have their research and all have proposed budgets with the research and development funding being slashed by like up to 65%. I think NASA's budget is being slashed by, or is proposed to be slashed by like 35%. The NSF's budget, which is the National Science Foundation, its budget is supposed to be slashed by like 51%. So like these are examples of the MAGA movement undermining those institutions and removing their ability to produce valuable scientific knowledge.
Okay, would you be willing to say that these are niches?
No. What's niche about NASA? What's niche about the National Science Foundation? What's niche about the National Institute of Health?
This is a very specific field, and there's not a lot of people pursuing this field.
What field?
Like cosmetology.
NASA isn't cosmetology.
Or space exploration, space.
So NASA is not like a niche organization. It's one of like the main organizations of, it's one of the main federal agencies, right? The National Science Foundation is literally the primary federal organization that provides scientific funding for research outside of medical research. So all of the other scientific research that we do, almost all of it comes through the National Science Foundation. The space science often comes through NASA. The medical science often comes through the National Institute of Health or the CDC. But like these are not, like this is like all of science, right? What's niche about this?
Okay, so niche as in this is the, like we have other fields that are more important.
Scientific fields?
Right now.
What other scientific fields are not covered?
So we have fields that are not scientific. We have construction, like we have manual fields. We have
we're talking about science here.
Like that.
Look,
yeah.
If what you're doing is so look, the idea here is that being anti-science has two parts, and we can talk about the first part. The second part is what we're currently talking about, which is that the MAGA movement seems like it's regularly undermining the institutions and procedures that produce scientific knowledge. And the way that that's being done is by reducing funding, reducing independence, increasing advisory review in a politically and ideologically motivated way, and changing education standards. Now, you could say that they have some other reason for doing this and that, you know, they're not actually anti-science. They're just, you know, they just have other priorities. They don't care about, oh, he left. Oh, what a coward. Oh, well. Let's talk to Brookhaven. Love that name.
What's good, my boy?
How's it going, Brookhaven?
Oh, shoot. What's going on, bro?
Not a whole lot. Brookhaven, do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Brookhaven, would you call yourself MAGA?
Yeah, man, I want the country to be, you know, a good place. But
okay.
Obviously, it's not, you know, too well right now, but yeah.
Okay, would you say that, A, that you think that climate change is happening, and B, if you think that climate change is happening, that humans are the main cause?
I mean, yeah, I think we're the main cause, I'm not going to lie. Like, who else is going to cause it?
Well, some people don't think that it's caused. Brookhaven, are you American?
But, yeah.
Where are you from?
Florida.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines that we typically give to children, these are things like the MMR vaccine, the hepatitis vaccine, do you think that these vaccines are generally safe and effective?
I mean, I don't think no vaccine is really safe, but I feel like it's just an experiment, so it's 50-50. But I ask you a quick question.
Hold on, I'm not done. We have there's one more question after this, but I need your answer. Like, do you think that they're generally safe and effective, or no? You can also say that you're unsure. That's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's safe, but I've seen it. Yeah, I'm unsure.
Okay, and then the final question, and then we can get into it, is do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
No, that doesn't make sense.
Okay, great. So you had a question?
Yeah, when you said MAGA is anti-science, how are we anti-science when you guys literally think a biological male can be a female or woman?
Oh, well, to be clear, the claim is not that a biological male can be a biological female. That's not the claim.
You think trans women are women?
Yeah, males and men and females and women are different things, and in fact, the science agrees with me on that.
All right, how are they different?
Yeah, do you want me to read you two different definitions from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine with regards to science and with regards to sex and gender?
Tell me what makes female different.
I'll give you the different definitions for sex and for gender, okay? So again, this is according to the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. Sex is a multidimensional construct based on a cluster of anatomical and physiological traits that include external genitalia, secondary sex characteristics, gonads, chromosomes, and hormones.
Yeah.
And gender is a multidimensional construct that links gender identity, which is a core element of a person's individual identity, gender expression, which is how a person signals their gender to others through their behavior and appearance, such as hairstyle and clothing, and cultural expectations about social status, characteristics, and behavior that are associated with sex traits.
Right, so
you understand that those are two different definitions, right?
Yeah, based off of your definition. So what makes
this is not my definition. This is from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine.
All right, so what makes a person a woman?
I just gave you the definition of gender. Woman is a gender.
Yeah, so what are the
female,
characteristics of? Yeah, so what
it's
are the
a multidimensional construct that links gender identity, which is a core element of a person's individual identity, gender expression, which is how a person signals their gender to others through their appearance and behavior, and cultural expectations about social. Do you not know what the word, like what gender expression means? Do you not know what that means?
I'm asking you. Okay, you're making claims when I need to
I'm actually not making any normative claims here. I'm telling you that the scientific consensus is that sex and gender are different things.
What?
That's the scientific consensus.
What are the characteristics of a woman, or what are the expressions of a woman?
Don't ask me. Go ask the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine.
Because you don't know. You just saying, female and women are.
I'm not making
you're
a
saying
normative
female
claim
and
here.
women are different, but you can't.
I'm not making a normative claim here. I'm telling you what the scientific consensus is.
So what is a woman?
I'm telling you what the scientific consensus is. Are you not understanding what the claim that's happening here?
You're trying to avoid.
Do you not understand what's going on here?
You literally can't answer the question. What is a woman?
Do you not understand what's happening here? Are you struggling? Like, is this hard for you?
I mean, I heard what you said.
So look, the claim is not that I know anything. The claim is merely that the scientific consensus is that there's a distinction between sex and gender.
Okay, so if
I could know nothing, and it would still be true that there's a scientific consensus that distinguishes sex and gender.
So if there's a difference between sex and gender, tell me what a female is and tell me what a woman is.
Literally, it doesn't matter whether I know the answer to those questions for my claim to be true. We understand this, right?
And you're calling us anti-science?
I could be dumb as bricks. Well, I'm calling you anti-science because you're disagreeing with the scientific consensus.
No, you're disagreeing because you're saying...
I just read you what the scientific consensus was.
Yeah, but you can't even explain. You can't even
Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine.
You can't elaborate on that. I'm asking you a question. You're just trying to avoid it.
Wait, so to be clear, do you disagree with the definition I have offered? The definitions I've offered?
Yeah, in a way, but I'm asking you.
Okay, so then you're anti-science. That is scientific consensus.
You're anti-science because you.
I just read you from the source, from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, what the definitions of those words are, and you're like, no, I disagree. That's what anti-science is, my guy.
You're not elaborating. You're just giving me a definition, and then I'm asking you to explain it. If I ask you,
okay, do you want me to send you the link where you can go read it? Do you want to go read about it? Because I can send you the link.
But I'm trying to hear from you. I'm speaking to you. I'm asking you what is a woman, but you can't give me an answer.
I could be the stupidest person on earth and my claim would still be true. That is the scientific consensus. It has absolutely nothing to do with my knowledge.
What is a woman?
A woman is a kind of gender. You understand that, right?
All right, what gender? What gender?
That is a type of gender. Woman is the name of the kind of gender. You understand that, yeah?
It's a horrible definition. Could you please break down what is a woman?
A woman is one kind of gender. There are several kinds of gender, perhaps at least two. And I told you what the definition of gender is. Gender is a category.
All right, so what distinguish both genders, man and woman?
So I'll read the definition for you again. Gender is a multidimensional construct that links gender identity, which is a core element of a person's individual identity,
tell me,
gender expression, which is how a person signals their gender to others through their behavior and appearance, and cultural expectations about social status, characteristics, and behavior that are associated with sex traits. So if two people have gender expression, gender identity, and different cultural expectations, then their genders will
Exactly.
be
All
different.
right. So tell me those things. Tell me the cultural norms and the social
That depends
norms
on the
and the
culture.
characteristics.
That depends
All
on
right,
the
so
social,
let's
on the
talk about this
society. That
culture.
depends on the
All right.
characteristics.
Hold
It
on.
depends on the
Let's
gender
talk.
expression. It depends on
All
the
right, so
person's
let's talk
individual
about.
identity. Do you not
All
understand
right.
what's happening here?
Yes. So let's talk about
I
this.
understand that you
Oh
want
my
to.
gosh,
I understand that you read the first page of a biology 101 textbook and now you think
But
you
we-
understand biology.
Hold on.
But biology, psychology, and sociology are far more complicated than you think they are.
Let's
Just
talk about-
relying on man, penis, woman, vagina, it's just not
I'm
going
not.
to
I
take
never
you very
said that.
far.
I never said
That's
that. So
not
let's
what the
talk about-
scientific
All
consensus
right. No.
is. I'm sorry.
Okay. So let's talk about 2026. Let's talk about the United States. What are the social norms of a woman in 2026?
That's irrelevant for the conversation.
Oh,
The
all of a
scientific-
sudden it's irrelevant.
No, of
But
course
you
it's
made the
irrelevant. The
claim.
scientific consensus is that there is a distinction, and you're disagreeing with that, which makes you
All right,
anti-science.
so tell me. See,
I already read to you what the
understanding I'm trying to
distinction
say.
was.
Because you're trying to avoid.
No, I'm just not letting you pivot to a semantic game. The point
How
is
am I
the scientific
pivoting?
consensus disagrees with your
I'm asking you
view,
to break
which
down
makes
what
you
you said.
anti-science.
You're just giving me a definition without elaborating or explaining.
I gave
That's
you
what
the
you're doing.
definition and you disagreed with it. And the definition comes from the National
All
Academies
right,
of
so
Science,
break it
Engineering,
down
and
so I
Medicine.
can get on this.
Okay, so which
complete-
words did you not understand?
It would be vague.
Which words did you not understand?
No, I never said that I understand the definition, but I'm saying could you
Oh,
break
if you understand
down
it,
the
then you don't need me
definition?
to break it down, do you?
No, you're trying not to break it down because you know you will
Why?
like basically
Wait,
get
but if you
contradicted.
understand it, what's the purpose of breaking it down?
So you can understand the difference between man and woman because you're
But I
obviously.
already gave you the definition of gender. I gave you the definition of sex. You
I
disagree
never
with
asked-
those
I ne- I
definitions,
never
and it
asked for the
sounds like that
definition of
makes you
gender.
anti-science.
Hold on. So I never asked for I never asked for the definition of gender. I asked for the definition of.
I know you
woman.
didn't ask for the definition of gender because you wanted to get into
Exactly.
a semantics
So you-
dispute
so
rather
that-
than
that
actually just
proves that you're dodging.
referring to what the scientific consensus is.
So that proves that you're dodging my whole entire. Because I
You're
never
right,
asked.
I am dodging your entire deflection and
Exactly.
pivot. I'm not going to let you
always
pivot.
do. So you're anti-science.
So I'm anti-science for agreeing with the scientific consensus? Is that what you're telling me?
No, you don't even know what you. All right, so your claim is a trans woman is a woman, right?
My claim is that sex and gender are different.
Yeah, so you basically agreed that trans women are women, right?
Well, trans is typically a modifier. It's like
Yeah,
an
so you just-
adjective. So
everything I
kind of
say,
by
you just keep
definition it
dodging. Why
is.
keep dodging? Why
I
you
just
not
answered your
answering-
question.
Why you not
Like,
answering
trans
me
is a modifier,
directly?
right? So it's an adjective that goes in front of a noun. And so
Yeah,
a
for
trans
what
woman
reason?
would be a kind of woman.
Oh, okay, good. A kind of woman.
Yes.
So what?
and
like
a woman
so what
is a
so,
gender category.
All right. So what is a woman?
It's a gender category.
So what makes a person a gender category or a
A
woman?
gender category is a thing that most humans have. They have one, they fall into one of at least two gender categories.
Yeah. So what
It
makes
seems
them?
like you're
are you dumb? What
confused.
makes them that? Like that's what
It's
I'm asking.
completely irrelevant as long as there is a
It's
distinction
irrelevant.
between
What the hell?
gender
What
and
do you mean?
sex.
It's irrelevant. So how do we know
As long
who's
as there
a
is
woman and who's a man?
as long as there is a distinction between
How do
gender
we
and sex,
know-
and you don't recognize that distinction, you are currently
All
anti-science.
right. So what are you? Are you a man? Are you a man?
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. So what makes you a man?
That I fall into the man gender category.
All right. So what? Like you're answering me. That was circular as well. But I'm asking you what? Like
That's
what
like
makes
asking.
you a man?
Hold on.
That's
To be clear,
circular.
that's like saying what makes a chair.
You say
or
I'm
what-
a man
what makes
because I
that- what
fall
makes
into
that
the
chair
man
a chair?
category. That's circular.
What makes that chair a chair? It's in the category of chairs. It's like an object that's in that category.
Like you're so smart, you're dumb at the same time. Like I'm
sure.
asking you a question, you just give me a circular definition. I ask you what makes you a man. You say I
ge-
fall
look,
into the
okay,
man
so-
category.
so-
What
Okay, then
is
I'll
what
make
makes
this
you a
very
man?
simple for you. I'll make this very simple for you, okay?
No, this
So,
is simple for you.
I'm gonna make this very simple for you. So take all of the people in the world. Now let's suppose that there's only two genders, right? Take all of the people in the world. Those people will end up in one of two groupings. We
For
call
what-
one
for
grouping
what reason?
man,
Why?
and we call the other grouping woman.
Yes, why?
It's just the words we use to refer to different people.
Why?
Brookhaven, what state does Florida border? Sorry,
my
what
God.
states does Florida border?
Alabama and Georgia.
Okay. Are you missing one?
What? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I muted.
Wait, what are we talking about now? I asked you what makes
Because
you...
people are saying that you're not actually from the US.
Yeah, because I have an accent. My mom is from...
Somebody says that they have IP proof that you aren't American.
What? That's just weird. But my mom is from Jamaica and my dad is from Florida.
So look, the
yeah, I'm
point
asking
here
you
is
what makes you a man? That's what I'm saying.
The point is I could have a completely failed understanding of sex and gender, a completely failed understanding of gender, and you would still be anti-science here because you disagree with the scientific consensus.
So what, bro? Were you born? Hold on. Were you born a man?
That's the whole point.
Were you born a man?
So look, do you understand what I just said? Do you understand the sentence, the English that I just told you?
Yes, that's why I'm asking. Yes, that's why I'm asking you these questions.
Okay, so you agree that you are anti-science?
No, I'm trying to prove that you're anti-science. What makes you a man?
Sorry, if you want to prove that I'm anti-science, then you should probably do one of two things, okay? You should
Were you born a man?
You should probably A, show that I reject or delegitimize mainstream
no,
scientific consensus, or B, that I'm interested in undermining institutions and procedures that we use to produce scientific knowledge. Are you going to do one of those two things?
Are you going to keep running away?
I'm staying very much on topic about whether
you're
or not
not. You're
you
all
are
over the place and
anti-science or if I am
to
anti-science.
Do you have like a YouTube or something where I can like watch this back?
You absolutely can. Yeah, it's live streaming on YouTube right now.
Okay, talk to me because I'm gonna show. I don't
I'm
know.
just not going to let you deflect to like some deranged...
How am I deflecting? You're literally deflecting.
Because you want to talk about what's in people's pants and what chromosomes people have.
When did I ever say that?
For the conversation.
Tell me when did I ever care
That's
about
irrelevant for the conversation about whether or not MAGA is anti-science.
Because that doesn't even make you male or female. So why did I even say that?
The point is you want to talk about something that's not on topic. Right?
Oh my
you
gosh.
You want to debate whether or not the definition of sex and gender are correct. You want to debate what it means to be a man or a woman, and that is completely unrelated to the topic here.
I asked you if trans women are women. You said, "Oh, sex and gender is different." I never made a claim. I'm just asking you, what makes you a man?
You've agreed with me that you agree that the definition I've provided you is not correct.
All right, so I asked you, hold on, because you're going to a different thing again.
Fighting against the scientific consensus.
I asked you what makes you a man. You said I fall into the man category. What the hell does that even mean? That's circular.
I mean, you can call it circular. Definitions are ultimately circular.
It is circular because you use the same word again.
Definitions are ultimately circular.
It doesn't explain to me what makes you a man.
Okay, I'm sorry that you have a trouble understanding this. If you didn't understand what a chair was, I couldn't explain to you what a chair was, except by showing you a bunch of chairs. So look, the way that we do English, the way that we come up with categories, is we do something called family resemblance. I don't know if you know this. Are you familiar with, this is from Wittgenstein, if I remember correctly. Are you familiar with this notion of family resemblance?
Bro, why are you all over the place? Could you just answer the question?
Oh, wow. You are
like you're intentionally. I know you know that you know.
Good point. Really a good demonstration of the uneducated.
That's why you're trying to avoid my question. And then these idiots in the chat doesn't even know.
Brookhaven, the way that we come up with categories, ultimately speaking, the way that we put things in categories, the way that we put things in categories, ultimately, is not by necessary and sufficient conditions. We use family resemblance because necessary and sufficient conditions, with very, very few exceptions, will never include the things that we want to include in a category while excluding the things that we want to exclude. So for example, I could ask you, what's the definition of a chair? What are the necessary and sufficient conditions to be a chair? And then you could say, oh, well, it has 4 legs. Well, what about a stool? A stool has 3 legs. Is it a chair? Yeah.
Or so you're saying
a chair is something that you sit on. Well, a horse is something you sit on. Is a horse a chair? No.
Well,
so
you're
you have
saying
to
not to
keep
say
changing your
like,
definition. And the point is there is not a single rigorous definition that is both necessary and sufficient for a thing to be a chair. Instead, we come up with categories.
You have to be a female.
Instead, we come up with categories so that we come up with categories and we group things in that category by family resemblance. Like a stool is kind of like an office chair, which is kind of like the chair that you sit in school. These are all kind of like each other. And so there is some overlapping regimes there, and we call all of the things that fit into that overlap a chair. Do you understand that idea?
Bro, answer the question. Why are you trying to like...
Okay, you clearly didn't understand that, did you?
Yes, I did. So what are you saying not to say what?
Can you repeat back to me what I said? Or summarize back to me what I said?
To be the necessary conditions to be a woman, you have to be a female.
Can you repeat back to me or
That's
summarize
something
what I said?
that all women fall under. You have to be a female.
Can you summarize back to me what I said?
I answered you.
You didn't summarize anything that I said.
You were making an analogy with the chair. You're saying that, I guess, to be a chair, you'll have to have 4 legs, but not all chairs, I guess, have 4 legs. So I'm saying there is a necessary condition to be a woman. You have
Okay,
to
can you give me the necessary condition to be a chair?
That wasn't even my claim. What are you talking about? But
look, because
like, I don't
the
like,
reason I'm talking about the chair
like,
is because it's less politically charged than gender. And so I'm trying to illustrate my point without making you feel bad and go into your defensive mode.
You got some metal, wood.
Does that make sense? So what is the necessary condition to be a chair?
You got cushion.
Got a cushion? Okay. Question. Is a stool
not
a
all
chair?
chairs got 4 legs.
You're right, not all chairs have 4 legs. Okay, so then what do all chairs have?
What you're saying is to say what? Like, there's no necessary condition to be a woman? That's what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that we don't define words in this way.
Yes or no?
What I'm saying is that
because
we don't define words via necessary and sufficient
I don't know
conditions.
why you're being so bad faith.
It's just not how we define words.
You have to be female, man. Come on. You should know that. Like, you're too smart.
Like, that
you're so
seem
smart
like that's
to be this
necessary and
stupid.
sufficient.
I don't understand it. Like,
well, I appreciate the compliment, but it seems like you think that even though there's no necessary and sufficient conditions to be a chair, there are necessary and sufficient conditions to be a woman, because being a woman, that makes me feel icky if there are other people who fit into that category. Like what? Why are you being so hypocritical? Just be normal. Recognize that if there are no necessary and sufficient conditions to be a chair, then it's plausible that there are no necessary and sufficient conditions to be a woman.
I just said it, though. You have to be female.
Okay.
Tell me one person.
Female? How do you define female?
All for denoting the sex that bear offspring and produce large gametes.
Sorry, what was the first few words?
Of or denoting.
Of or denoting the sex. Okay, so people don't denote anything. So you mean of the sex that's able to bear offspring, right?
Yeah, they indicate
okay, so
certain traits.
They indicate certain traits. What are those traits?
Large gametes.
Okay, so what if somebody doesn't produce large gametes?
Then they have something else. No, they have something else.
Okay, so you would call people who have androgen insensitivities.
Wait, so hold on, you're just going to deflect from what
you would call those people not female? Complete androgen insensitivity. You would call those people not female.
They have something else. That's what I'm saying. They're always going to have something. Name me one female. Hold on, doctor.
Hold on,
Mr. Doctor. Name me one female who was born with like absolutely nothing, like nothing.
No. I mean, you can have people who you can absolutely have people that we would typically call women that have male gametes. That's
not what I said. I said who has nothing, like female traits, no nothing. Tell me.
No. So suppose that you have somebody who has complete.
Because there's none.
I'm answering your question.
They always have something else.
I'm answering your question. Suppose somebody has small gametes, but they have complete androgen insensitivity syndrome.
Yeah. So what is that condition? What is that? Because you're trying to use the intersex shield because you're shielding these trans people by using the intersex.
Complete androgen insensitivity syndrome.
What does intersex have to do with anything? They're still either male or female.
Okay, so someone with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, are they male or female? Which one?
What? Say that again.
If somebody has complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, are they male or female?
What is that? Give me the name of the condition so I can search it.
It's called complete androgen insensitivity syndrome.
Male or female can have that. And that's not even the point I'm trying to bring. I'm saying they still have something
Male or
else.
female cannot have complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. Tell me, what sex is somebody with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome?
Wait, let me search up. Hold on.
Okay. I would think that you would know about this, but...
Hey, man, we are Charlie Kirk. Yo, boys, man.
Oh, he ran! What a coward! When he received any pushback, he ran! Well, say hello to YouTube. That's rough. I can't believe he said we are Charlie Kirk when he realized that complete androgen insensitivity syndrome completely destroys his necessary and sufficient condition for being a female. Look, so by the way, just so I could complete the argument, because, you know, I was walking him down a path that he knew he was going to lose. He said that a necessary condition for being a woman is being a female. I asked him what makes someone a female. He said that large gametes, right? So if it's the case that we have somebody who has large gametes, or that does not have large gametes, has small gametes, like a person with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, or they might not produce any gametes at all, they certainly don't have large gametes, well, then we would be forced to say that it is not possible for a person with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome to be a woman, right? But no single human being on Earth would say, and let me just give a quick example. No reasonable being on Earth would say that none of these people are women. Not a single one of them are women, right? No one would say those things. So in order to make the claim that female sex is necessary in order to, you know, be a woman, you would have to say that all of these people are not women. And that's like obviously absurd, right? Because they're indistinguishable from a woman, and they would have been indistinguishable from a woman prior to the 1950s, even medically, right? Now we have karyotyping, so we can like check what people's chromosomes are, but like there was no notion of a woman prior to the 1950s that they could have ever checked to see whether or not these people were women or not. They would have just been like, yes, they're obviously women. Anyway, so that was the argument here. All right, let's read some super chats, then we'll move on to the next guest. But MAGA loves to crash out about gender when their view on gender is absolutely in conflict with the scientific consensus. From Ryan Cooper with the $5, have you looked into how anti-trans propaganda is funded by the fossil fuel industry to distract from climate change? Several news orgs confirm this. That's fascinating. I haven't looked into this. If you could send me something on like Discord or something about this, that'd be awesome. From Gretchen with the $6.66, this caller is so dumb, I hope he's not home alone without adult supervision. Sounds dangerous. He was very dumb. Yes, I agree. He was dumb and hateful, which is much worse. From Christopher Sanford with the £5, yeah, but will you follow my script, every anti-science bro ever? Yeah, right? The point is it doesn't matter. I could be a non-expert, I could not know anything, and I could just be like, yep, that's the scientific consensus, so I follow that. Here we have Zach pointing out exactly what I said. Thank you for the $20, Zach. Blitz states a scientific consensus. Interlocutor, it can't be a science because you aren't an expert of it. WTF, by the way, I'm ecstatic that you're doing this one. This is very important work in today's climate. Well, I appreciate that. By the way, somebody said that my Cash App isn't working. It should be working. I've gotten a lot of Cash Apps from people in the recent past, like this morning even. From Daniel Cousin, Daniel Cousino, is that how you say that name? Thank you for the 10 Canuck bucks, by the way. This guy is so too dumb, I think you mean is too dumb to understand what you're saying. Gender is a social construct by definition. He's proving your point, but is too dumb to realize this. Yeah. From Saint Diluted with the $5, Brookhaven has been banned from Santana, Dean, and Parker's lives because he just wants to spew hate. Never argues in good faith. Fair enough. I mean, he's going to go on my YouTube channel. From Christopher Sanford with I already read that one. I read that one. It's being goofy again. We have $2 from JM with the thumbs up. Thank you so much. And we have $5 from Just Some Guy. MAGA crashes out on gender until you scrub their search history. That's a good point. And by the way, I just got a Cash App from Shay saying testing 1 2 3. So it does seem to be working, in fact, the Cash App. All right, let's bring up Yappington. Yappington, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing A-okay. Yappington, do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
Sure.
Okay. And just yes or no, or I'm sure, or I'm not sure. That's sufficient. I'm just taking like a short survey. So first, would you call yourself MAGA?
Not particularly, but I'm more so moderate, but I disagree with the prompt. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll put moderate in the survey. That's fine. Would you say that climate change, if it's real, is mainly caused by humans?
Mainly caused by humans? I don't know. Exacerbated by humans, certainly.
Okay. I'll put unsure if that's okay. Do you think that the vaccines that we typically administer to, infants and very young children, like MMR and hepatitis vaccines, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
Generally, yeah.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, you said that you disagree with the prompt, so want to tell me why?
Well, the nuance here is I disagree that it's MAGA that is anti-science. I think people are anti-science and anti-intellectual in general. And I think you're kind of demonstrating this, right? Like the conversation you just had with the last guy about trans people. You mixed up ontology with like weird philosophical interpretations and hermeneutics. It's like
hermeneutics?
You didn't actually.
You mean hermeneutics? Hermeneutics is interpretation of the Bible.
Well, I mainly learn from reading. I don't have a college degree.
Okay, that's fine.
But the point here is, I don't like the conversation you were having with the last guy about trans women or men or women. That doesn't make any sense. And then you argue that there's scientific evidence for it, which violates.
No, I was telling you what I was telling him what the scientific consensus was.
But that's what I'm saying, right? How is there a scientific consensus on something that the left... Hold on.
Go ahead.
How is there a scientific consensus on something that the left largely views as social constructionism?
Well, sociology is a science.
Sure.
Psychology is a science. Neurobiology is a science.
Sure. And
also, so we can study these things in relation to a person's experience. That's science. There can be a scientific consensus on this.
So let me ask you a question before I put an assumption on you. Do you believe in social constructionism?
You'd have to define it.
Basically, the idea that concepts are socially constructed, like gender.
Some concepts certainly are.
Right. Do you believe that gender is socially constructed?
In a sense, I think that there are probably also psychological aspects to it too, and I'm not sure if that's socially constructed, except insofar as like we put a socially constructed name to some sort of experience or some sort of identity.
Right, but how can you not then extend that logic to biological sex? You could easily argue that gender is a derivative from sex.
You could argue that, but the neurobiologists and psychologists would disagree with you.
I wasn't finished. Sex or gender is derived from sex. It's material referent. That you could easily make that argument, but you reject it largely.
You could make that argument, but you'd be disagreeing with the scientific consensus.
The scientific
It's not the case that male implies man if you're an adult. It's not the case that female implies woman. That's the scientific consensus is that that's not the case.
The scientific consensus on something that is widely viewed as socially constructed.
Yeah. We have a social construct, and then we can look at how does that social construct, like we can make objective determinations about whether that social construct aligns with or categories in that social please.
That is a downstream effect.
To be clear, there is a social construction. Whether or not you think gender is socially constructed or not, that's irrelevant. There is a notion of gender. There is a notion of gender, man, woman, Like these are notions of gender that exist in societies. Whether or not they come like intrinsically from psychological or neurophysiological effects, or whether they come merely from sociological effects is completely irrelevant. There are those categories. Those categories exist in human societies. There's also categories of sex. And the question is it the case that if you are of one sex, then you are guaranteed to be of a specific gender? And the answer, scientifically, is no.
But that doesn't make any sense, because once again,
okay, I'm sorry it doesn't make sense to you. You're just saying that the scientific consensus is wrong.
Right. You're asserting the scientific consensus.
Do you want me to show you?
Ma'am, I mean, sir, I'm saying that I agree that gender is socially constructed, but that when we take the idea that gender is socially constructed, it decouples it from material reality. You're then trying to impart material reality back onto something that we believe is socially constructed, which has already been decoupled from material reality. That doesn't make sense. You're downstream from what actually is going on, right? Like I said, I can agree that gender is socially constructed, but where is the scientific consensus on something that is socially constructed?
You understand that sociology is a science, right?
Everything is downstream from that construction.
Do you understand that sociology is a science?
Yes.
Okay. Do you so you understand that sociology, one of the things that they do is they study social constructs?
Sure.
Okay, so you can come to scientific consensus with regards to social constructs.
Hold on, let's be perfectly clear. There's 101 different philosophical interpretations. You're picking one.
101 different philosophical interpretations of what?
Of gender, of the psychological understanding of humans.
There's like three by the way, there's like three primary ones, just so you're aware. And yeah, there's actually like polling data.
Many others.
You want the philosophical categories of what gender is? This is a survey of philosophers asking whether gender is psychological, social, biological, or not real. You'll find that 29% of them think that gender is biological, 21% of them think that gender is psychological, and 63% of them think that gender is social. And then like 4% of them think that it's not real at all. And then the rest basically accept some combination of views. So no, I mean, like there's basically three different categories of ways to understand gender. And the primary way, as understood by philosophers, is that gender is social. And it seems to be the case that that's what the scientific community agrees with as well.
This is, once again, this is an assertion. No, you didn't actually.
I just showed you polling data. Bro, this is not an assertion.
Can I finish? You showed me a survey of philosophers, of scientists, and it just asks them, what do they believe gender is? That is an assertion, right? Kerry Mullis, the guy who invented PCR, he was a Nobel winner. He believed HIV didn't kill people. This is an appeal to expertise. Like,
I'm not appealing to expertise. I'm appealing to science. I'm appealing to consensus.
Just appeal to expertise, my guy.
No, I appealed to consensus.
Right, consensus, which is appeal to expertise. You didn't demonstrate.
No, it's not appeal to expertise.
Evidence. Where was the scientific?
By the way, appealing to expertise isn't a fallacy.
Where was the scientific evidence in what?
Well, so the reason I brought up the survey that I just showed you is because you said that there's Yappington. The reason I showed you Yappington. The reason, wow, your name really checks out. The reason why.
Me, my guy. Let's be for real.
The reason why I showed you the survey I showed you was because you said that there are 100 different philosophical definitions of gender, and I showed you, according to the philosophical surveys, which is like a well-reputed way of surveying philosophers, there's three: sex, biological, social, and psychological, right? And like those are the three ways, and the vast majority of philosophers think that gender is a social thing. Now, if you want to actually look at the science behind the way that we understand gender, look no further than the difference between transgender brains and cisgendered brains, because there is a difference.
There's no scientific consensus on that, and arguing that there is in bad faith.
There's no scientific consensus on that?
On whether gender is associated to brain structure.
There is to make the claim that there's no scientific, to be clear, to make the claim that there's no scientific consensus, I would imagine that you would have to show that there is research, or that there are claims that are disputing this, right?
That there is a scientific consensus.
I made the claim that I can show. I made the claim that I can show you that there is a distinction between transgender brains, at least a bit, and typical cisgender male and cisgender female type brains.
Sure. So let me ask you.
That certainly exists, and here's a study on it, by the way.
Sure. So where do you think gender came from? If it's socially constructed, where did it come from? Why did we construct it?
Look, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a sociologist. I don't have the answers. I'm just going off of what the scientists say.
You're going
because
off
I'm not
what the
anti-science.
Like I said, Carrie Mullis said that HIV didn't kill them.
Right. That's why.
So, I
that's
mean,
why we don't
that
go
was
off
the
of
Nobel
individual.
winning-
That's why we don't go off of individual scientists. We go off of scientific consensus. So if the
Yes,
scientists are going to tell me that there is a distinction between sex and gender, and that sex needs to be taken, or that gender needs to be taken seriously as far as, you know, examining neurophysiological constraints as much as gender does, as much as sex does, then I'm going to believe them.
Sure, and 200 years ago, the scientific consensus was, "I'm not a human."
Oh, so we're doing anti-science now.
No.
Science was wrong in the past, therefore we shouldn't trust science now.
Bro, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I definitely believe in science. Okay. I think
so why are you challenging the scientific consensus here?
Hold on. I think you're weaponizing science to support a politically motivated ideology, and I don't agree with that.
To be clear, do you think that the scientific consensus amongst, say, neurophysiologists, psychiatrists, psychologists, sociologists, do you think that they think that there is a genuine distinction between sex and gender, and that being one particular sex implies that you are one particular gender? Do you think that that's the case? Or do you think that the scientific consensus goes the other way?
It's irrelevant. It's not what you say, it's what you prove. Is there proof for this?
Look, are you a sociologist?
Are you?
No. Are you a psychologist?
Okay. Are you?
No. Can you actually answer my question? Are you any of these things? Are you any
have the same level of expertise?
Yappington, are you any of these things?
Like, what are we? No. Now you're trying to.
Yappington, are you? Yappington, are you any of these things?
No.
I'm just checking. Look, so neither am I.
No, are you?
No. My point is neither of us are.
Okay, so neither of us has any authority.
You're right, Yappington. You got it. You're right on the money. Yappington, shut up for a second. Stop yapping, and listen. The point is neither of us are experts on this. So the correct epistemological move, the correct epistemological move is to listen to the people that do have expertise on this. That is the correct epistemological move when you don't have expertise in a particular field. And what you're doing is you're saying, no, I don't think that the experts know what they're talking about. Even though I'm not an expert, I know better. That's what you're doing, and that's anti-science.
I am saying that the experts are asserting something that there is not conclusive empirical evidence of, and you're asserting their interpretation of the data that does exist as being incontrovertibly true. That's
so to be clear,
saying.
You're saying that they are making unfounded claims, and you are justifying that you're justifying this position by what? How are you justifying this position?
I am saying that they have not conclusively demonstrated that gender is associated with someone's neurotype.
Okay, so to be clear, on what grounds are you coming to this conclusion that the justification that they're using is insufficient?
The lack of evidence.
Okay, and have you evaluated this evidence? I imagine that in order to evaluate the quality of the evidence and the quantity of the evidence and, you know, the implications of the evidence, you would need to have some degree of expertise to evaluate it, right?
Sure, so why are you asserting it? Because
I'm not. So? I'm just listening to what they say because they have the expertise in that area.
But how do you know what they say is true?
It's called a sound epistemology, right? It is the case, Yappington. Okay, clearly not. Well, you might know it. You might know what it is, but you don't have a very sound epistemology.
So Yappington, of human understanding. I get it, bro.
Okay, I understand that you know what the word means, but you don't have a sound epistemology. So here's the point. The point is, your epistemology is apparently if something is politically inconvenient, you question the people who know better than you.
No, that's not my epistemology.
It seems like it is.
No, my epistemology.
Look, Yappington, if you don't, so let me just, perhaps we can change to a less politically charged topic. If you need advice, let's say that you're having heart palpitations, right? And you want to know what's going on. Do you go to a cardiologist or do you go to your next door neighbor who is presumably not a cardiologist?
Obviously my cardiologist, but
Okay.
cardiology
If you
is
need,
a far more well-settled science.
if you need advice on how to, I don't know, on how to invest your stocks, do you go to an economist, like a microeconomist, or maybe like an investment banker or whatever, or do you go to your next door neighbor?
My economist.
Okay. Now, if you need help trying to understand, you know, why the KKK still exists in 2026, do you go to a sociologist or do you go to your next door neighbor?
Once again, my sociologist.
Okay, right. So when you're trying to figure out what's true, even if you recognize that they could be wrong about it, the best epistemological move is to ask the people who are experts in the field. You don't just go to some random Joe Schmo. You don't just listen to your intuition. You go to the experts in the field. And for all of these things, cardiology, economics, and sociology, these have varying degrees of subjectivity, and yet you understand that they're more likely to know the answer than you are.
Sure.
So why does that not apply here?
Because when I go to the experts and I ask them the question and they show me the evidence, I find it insufficient. And let's be clear, you are hold on. You are leaning into the people who are experts in this, who agree with your opinion, and completely ignoring the ones who don't.
Do you think that there are a lot of like sociologists or psychologists or like neuroscientists who think that like that sex implies gender?
What would be a lie?
Like, you know, let's say more than 30%. It doesn't have to be the majority, but like, you know, we can even say like more than 20% if you wanted.
A statistically significant amount, sure, yeah.
Okay, and can you support that?
Let's go back to your survey. That supports it, right?
Those were philosophers. Those were not sociologists, psychologists, or neurobiologists.
I thought you said they were neurobiologists.
No, I said that they were philosophers.
My fault. Either way, doesn't matter. Just because you assert so, like let's be honest.
Either way, it doesn't matter that I can't support my view.
Hold on. You still haven't brought up any of this conclusive evidence.
Look, I'm not an expert. I don't have all the conclusive evidence. I just listen to the people who are. I just listen to the people who are.
This based off of what people say, not based on the
based
evidence,
off of what based off what the scientists say, yeah.
Based off of how they interpret the evidence. Which is
because I trust them to interpret the evidence with regards to, you know, brain structures, with regards to psychological experience, with regards to, sorry, I was in the middle of a sentence. I trust them to interpret the evidence in their field better than I would interpret the evidence in their field.
Sure,
right?
Sure. So why don't you trust that experts in their field who disagree with this opinion?
I've talked with several people. Like,
Yappington. This doesn't make sense. You're not making sense.
I'm answering your question. Don't cut me off. I'm answering your question. Look, so it seems to be the case that the people who don't agree with the consensus are a small group. And so, like, if it's like, let's say,
the evidence for that?
I don't have the numbers for this.
Where is the evidence?
Yappington.
So you asserted
Yappington.
It.
I'm in the middle of answering your question. I'm in the middle of answering your question. Yappington.
Bro.
I'm in the middle of answering your question. Okay. So I've spoken with several neurobiologists. I've spoken with several sociologists. And from what I've heard from them, the way I understand that they see their fields is that, yeah, there's like overwhelming consensus that this is the case. Now, they could be lying to me, you're right. But the best way that I could come up with a way to establish what is true about a field that I'm not well read on, that I'm not an expert in, is to just listen to the people who are, right? That is the most effective way that I can get information that is likely to be correct. You understand that?
Sure.
And so that's what I've done. Have you done that?
I have not talked to neurobiologists, but
have you talked to sociologists?
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. What % of all neurobiologists or sociologists in the world did you speak to?
Probably close to 0%, because I spoke with probably a total of 7 people.
So do you think that it's appropriate to extrapolate from close to 0%?
Oh, you misunderstood. I'm not saying that they gave me their positions and then I just extrapolated that position to everybody.
They asserted what the consensus
right. And they're more likely to be correct about this than I am, right?
Yes, than you. but
Yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't mean they're
and
more
then you,
correct.
right?
Sure, correct. But that doesn't
Right.
mean
So
they're
so
more
I'm
correct
so I'm,
than
look, I'm
other
just going to
people
listen
in
to
their
them.
field.
That's just more likely to be correct.
Right, but you're just picking who you agree with, or you're picking who you listen to based on whether they agree with your political opinion or not.
Have you ever
Why didn't you
wait, to be
hold,
clear,
hold,
have you
hold
ever
on,
heard a
hold on,
sociologist or a
hold on,
psychologist or a
my guy,
neurobiologist say
hold on a
that
second.
actually it's not the consensus that sex and gender are different things?
Oh my God. So where's the evidence that this is the consensus? You're expecting me to take tertiary evidence.
So
which
to
is
be
you.
clear, you saw this in the earlier conversation. I was about to provide it for you.
One time.
Yeah,
Let
go
me
ahead.
just finish one time. Jesus Christ.
Go ahead.
Your tertiary evidence. You got it as a secondary source. I'm getting it from you as a tertiary source, right? Do you think, from my perspective, that is reliable?
No, so you can actually just go and read stuff, but you're hold on. Yappington, I'm giving you look, so you can just go and read stuff if you want, but the thing is if I give you an individual journal articles, unless they're meta reviews, which are hard to come by and are hard to write, they're not going to tell you about the consensus. So instead what I can do is I can offer you several different articles that are all aligning in the same direction, or not articles perhaps. Another one would be like an official website of a national academy. Another one would be like an official statement of a neuroscience journal. So for example, here's a paper published in the Journal of Neuroendocrinology. This paper is called Neurobiology of Gender Identity and Sexual Orientation. It's by C.E. Roselli. Now, this is by a single author, right? So it's hard to say if the claims in here are the scientific consensus, but what you can do is you can go look through it and you can see that at least this idea is not so uncommon because there's papers published on it. And then you can go look at, let me pull up another thing.
Right, but uncommon is not the same.
And then you can go look at definitions offered by the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, and you'll find that those definitions, it offers different definitions for sex and gender, right? And this is like the official definitions offered by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. So like that's a large organization that has this view, so that at least speaks for many people. And then you can go look at the official policy of the Journal of Neuroscience, and what you'll find is that they are telling you that you should account for sex and gender in brain and behavioral research. Right? So like you can go look at these things and you'll find that like across the board, these organizations, you'll find organizations that agree with this view. You will find many individual papers that are defending this view. You will find kind of more popular approaches that are explaining this view. And so when you look at all of those pieces of data individually, you can build a coherent story in your head that, yeah, the scientific organizations and the scientists themselves and the people who are reading the scientists, they're all coming to the same conclusion, right? So that's how that in conjunction with the people telling me that this is consensus leads me to the conclusion that they're probably right.
Let me respond, bro.
Go ahead.
Jesus Christ. Like, first of all, like, something not being uncommon isn't the same as the consensus. Second of all, you could pick and choose, cherry pick the data you give me. That doesn't mean it's a consensus. And third of all, we all know, like anybody who's been in academia knows there is a lot of political bias in academia that pressures people into certain siloed positions. You think that just because the people who typically come up here don't know this, I do. I don't. I do. You have not offered any evidence of your position. You're simply asserting based off of secondary.
By the way, I did just offer a lot of evidence.
I don't accept that.
I did just offer a lot of evidence, by the way. You might not find it compelling, but it was evidence.
Certain interpretations. That is not the collective view. That is interpretations by specific.
No, you're just making an assertion. I provided evidence for the position that this is a consensus view, right?
I can assert. If you can assert,
so then provide me the conflicting evidence. Then
I don't need to. I'm asserting it. That's all I.
Well, but I just provided you with evidence. I provided you with a specific I provided you with an organization's definition. I provided you with the policy of a journal of neuroscience, and I provided you with an example paper of this being published academically. So that is evidence, right?
And you reference their definitions of gender and sex. Do you believe that I think that gender and sex are the same thing?
Well, the definition that it offers implies that sex doesn't mean the same thing as gender, that it doesn't imply gender, right?
I understand that. That is not what I am arguing.
It sounded like you were arguing that if you are a certain sex, then you are a certain gender. Is that not your position?
No, I specifically said that I believe that gender is a social construct, but it is derived from the material referent of sex.
Okay, so is it sufficiently derived from that material referent?
Yes.
Okay, so then you think that if you are a male, then you are, and an adult, then you are a man, right?
Typically, yes.
Okay, but so that is in conflict with for example, the definition offered by the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine.
Which is?
I showed it to you. I showed it to the other guy too. You want me to pull it up again?
Please.
Yeah, sure. Here. This is what sex is. Sex is a multidimensional construct based on a cluster of anatomical and physiological traits that include external genitalia, secondary sex characteristics, gonads, chromosomes, and hormones. And gender is a multidimensional construct that links gender identity, which is a core element of a person's individual identity, gender expression, which is how a person signals their gender to others through their behavior and appearance, such as hairstyle and clothing, and cultural expectations about social status, characteristics, and behavior that are associated with sex traits. So you realize that these are two. You realize that given these definitions, you can be you can be male and also be a woman. Given these definitions, right?
That is associated with sex traits. Is that not what I just?
Behavior that's associated with sex traits. So
right.
So you understand that this means that you could exhibit behavior that is associated with a different sex than you have.
We're not about to speed past this. You're trying.
No, we can talk about the specific line. So you understand that you could be a male and exhibit. You could be a male and exhibit behavior that's associated with females. Right? You understand that, yeah? Okay. Right. So then it doesn't follow. Gender. It doesn't follow that a male is automatically a man. Gender. Yes, we're talking about gender.
Right. And we both agree that sex and gender are different things. And
right, but your implications. I'm sorry. You're doing a Mott and Bailey. You're doing a Mott and Bailey right now, and it's so embarrassing for you. Yappington. What you just said not 5 minutes ago is that if you are a male and an adult, then you are a man. That it follows sufficiently from being a male to determining your gender. And I just showed you the definition offered by the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine that does not follow given their definitions. If you disagree with that, by all means, that's just not what the consensus is.
So first of all, I said typically, did I not? I said typically. Second of all,
you didn't. You did not say typically.
I literally did. You can go back and rewatch this. Like, you're not about to gaslight me. Try somebody else. Second of all, I specifically said that sex is the referent for gender. I specifically said I believe gender is a socially constructed idea. I specifically said these things. And your own definition references sex. Even if we were to bring in the definition of, say, a transgender person, someone who has a gender identity that is incongruent with their sex. It implies sex, even in the fucking definition.
Well, that's the trans part, right?
Oh my fucking God, bro.
Do you want to, should we actually rewind? Do you want to do that?
Sure, go ahead. Okay,
let me see if I can pull it up. The rewind feature hasn't been working lately, but I'll see if I can make it work.
Oh, I didn't know you could do it while you were still alive. That's cool.
Okay, I don't know why the Brave audio is... Here we go.
Oh, I didn't know you could do it while you were still alive.
Okay, so let's rewind. Characteristics, gonads, chromosomes, and hormones.
Of your position. Your
view, you will find... in common because there's papers published on it.
Jesus Christ. Like, first of all, like, something not being uncommon isn't as
evidence, by the way. You might not.
That is interpret
the position that this is a consensus evidence. Provided you with I
think that gender
mean the same thing as gender. That it doesn't imply gender. Right? Implies that sex doesn't mean the same thing as gender. That it doesn't imply gender.
I understand that. That is not what I am arguing.
It sounded like you were arguing that if you are a certain sex, then you are a certain gender. Is that not your position?
No, I specifically said that I believe that gender is a social construct, but it is derived from the material referent of sex.
Okay, so is it sufficiently derived from that material referent?
Yes.
Okay, so then you think that if you are a male, then you are, and an adult, then you are a man, right?
Typically, yes.
Okay, but so that
See,
so
you tried to gaslight me.
no, but hold on.
That's crazy.
So then you contradicted yourself.
No. Admit that you were wrong. Admit that you were wrong.
So you contradicted
Admit that
yourself
you were
then.
wrong.
Wait, hold on.
That you were wrong.
So absolutely you
You
said the word
I
typically.
didn't say typically.
So
you said I
Yappington,
didn't say
you're right.
typically.
You're right,
Admit,
Yappington.
No. Before
I just said you're right,
Yappington.
Yappington, you're right. You did say typically. However, you also said that it's sufficient, which means that you've contradicted yourself. It can't be sufficient and then also just be a typicality.
Well, it absolutely can. Why
No,
not?
it can't. Sufficient means that if the sufficient criteria are met, then the conclusion always follows. That's what sufficient means, right?
Sure, but
so it can't just be typically. It can't have exceptions.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's not a sufficient condition.
Okay, I see your point. I contradicted myself. I will acknowledge that. But what I will say is that doesn't erase the core point of what I was saying. Gender is socially constructed. Sex is not. Gender does reference sex, which your own definition.
Of course, gender references sex,
okay,
but gender
so
gender doesn't define sex.
That point?
I never argued. I never said that gender doesn't refer to sex.
Did.
Sex is involved in the definition of gender. It's just not the only thing that appears, right?
What part of gender is socially constructed do you not get?
So then, what are you even arguing against? What are you arguing about? Because I am presenting with you the scientific view, and if your view is in line with that, then how are you? What are you arguing about?
See, this is why we got way off topic with the original conversation. I disagree that you can take the prefix trans from woman and accurately describe what a trans woman is. Trans women are not women; they are trans women. That is
okay.
The point.
So is trans an adjective? Would you say?
It is both an adjective and a prefix.
Okay. So what gender does a trans woman have?
The gender of a woman.
Okay, so then a trans woman is a woman.
No.
You just said that a trans woman has the gender of woman.
Well, you're reducing what a woman is. What
do you mean? I'm just asking you what gender category does a trans woman fall into?
Hold on. A woman, as typically defined, is an adult human female. Trans women are not adult human females.
I mean, as typically defined by like.
Hold on. Let me finish.
As typically defined by like conservatives who don't know anything about sociology, I guess.
Sir. Let me finish. Okay. In the definition, it imparts sex. Now, with the word adult, that is where the social constructionist aspect comes in. Woman is both a description of biological sex and the derivative gender construction of woman that we refer to as woman.
I just want to check something. I just want to check the playback really quick. Okay, so then a trans woman is a woman. So what gender does a trans woman have?
The gender of a woman.
Based trans ally, let's go.
Did you not just listen to what I just said?
Well, it sounds like you contradicted yourself immediately afterwards.
No, I did. No, I didn't, because I literally just said that woman is both a description of sex and gender. Gender is derivative from the sex.
Woman can't be a description of sex if it's a different thing.
Every time I speak, you want to interrupt me and then get mad when I do it to you. Like, we need to be clear here. The typical definition is adult human female. Sex is a part of it.
That is part of it. That is one definition. It's not the definition that's typically used anymore.
It is the primary.
It
is the primary.
It is the primary
people
definition. In the social sciences and the psychological sciences.
Bro, it is the common definition. It is the most
amongst like lay people.
Oh my fucking God, Jesus Christ! It is the most commonly utilized definition, and pragmatics demands that it be the primary
question.
Definition.
Is Wonder Woman?
Hold on.
Is Wonder Woman a woman?
Jesus fucking Christ!
Is Wonder Woman a woman? Oh, he ran. That's sad. Why do they all run? Anyway, let's write that down. Based trans ally, though. We do love our trans allies. All right, let's read some super chats and then bring up our next guest. From Gretchen with the $2. Dude, try being shut the fuck uppington for like 2 minutes. That's funny. And from just some guy with the $5, I consider myself a moderate equals I'm the MAGA-iest MAGA ever to MAGA. I just don't want you to call me that. I mean, look, I'm not gonna, if he wants to self-identify as a moderate, by all means. From Bacon and Bush with the $10. If you haven't spoken to everyone in every field and read everything ever written, you'll never know as much as some guy who dismiss everything that doesn't support his ignorance anyway. That's true. It's true. You have to read everything, it turns out. From Bacon and Bush, from Docs and Greenlight, listening to tap dancing maggots is painful. Let's not call them maggots, they're people, even if they're sometimes dumb. From Just Some Guy with the $5, he's intentionally presenting contradictory arguing points so that he can't be wrong. Look, if you just assert that the position is both true and false, you can't be wrong. From Carrie Yost with the $2, trans women are women. Wait, trans women are women. We are done here. Indeed, we are. From Keller with the $5, neat fact, until the 1950s, the term gender was never used to refer to people. It was only used for objects, much like every other Western language. So my understanding is actually this is a Victorian phenomenon, so this would have happened in the 1800s. But yeah, people started referring to using gender to refer to people because they didn't want to say the word sex because, you know, the Victorians were very prudish. That's at least my understanding. All right, let's talk to Adon. Or Adon? Adon, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Am I saying your name right?
Yes.
Great.
That's
Adon,
correct.
do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
Yeah,
Just some
sure.
simple yes or no questions. Right. So first question, would you consider yourself MAGA?
No.
Okay. Second question, do you think that climate change is real? And if so, do you think that humans are the main cause of it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines that we typically administer to children are generally safe and effective?
No.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Wait, can you repeat that one more time?
Do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
No, I think that we are all humans. And we evolved from the same species, right?
No, I'm saying that, like, humans, as an entire species, evolved from a non-human species.
No.
Okay. Look, so it does say, the prompt is MAGA is anti-science, and it does say, think it's not, join the live. So you're not MAGA.
No.
But you don't think that MAGA is anti-science? Sounds like it's what you're telling me.
Well, it's hard to explain, but I was just hearing about like the women stuff. I think it like that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's MAGA or anti-MAGA. I'm not basing off on any special like group. I just think that women are females, as we might say.
Okay, but you understand that, like, that's not the scientific consensus, right?
It's not like
No.
females are not women. Is that what you're telling me?
That's not the scientific consensus. No.
What is the scientific consensus then?
That gender, of which woman is a kind, that gender is a separate category from sex, of which female is a kind. So you can be a female and not be a woman, for example.
Oh wow, that I didn't know.
Now you do.
It's always good to learn, man.
I agree. Adon, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
I think I'm going to remove him from the survey because I don't think that he actually. Anyway, I sometimes do miss cash apps. I try to read them when I remember them. Oops. Free. How's it going?
It's going good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you all right. Let me just write something down really quick if you don't mind.
No rush. I gotta get cookie out of my teeth anyway.
Okay, Free. So, do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
No, not at all.
Okay, so first question, and these really, like, they don't require complicated answers, just yes, no, or unsure, and then we can get into the details. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is, would you consider yourself MAGA?
Unsure.
Okay. Do you think that climate change is happening? And if so, do you think that humans are the main cause?
Yes and no.
So you think climate change is happening, but you don't think humans are the main cause?
No, I think that climate change. Can I ask you a question real quick, and it'll help you?
Yeah,
understand my
sure.
stance?
If you need a clarification.
Okay. Well, no, it's just, do you think that humans existed when the most dramatic climate change occurred on Earth?
So I'm talking about the climate change now.
Well, okay, so the reason why I don't believe that humans are the main factor now is because
Okay, so the answer is no. And we can talk
Yeah.
about that in a minute. I just want to get the survey out of the way, that's all.
Perfect.
Do you think that the vaccines that we typically administer to, like, infants, like babies, young children, like the MMR vaccine, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
If we're talking about the ones before the 19 one, yes.
Okay, these are like the ones that like babies get and stuff, like when they're born.
MMR.
Yeah, okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
You talking about Luca? Yes.
Or just like some earlier primate, right?
I believe that we all come from a common ancestor, so.
Okay, cool. Okay, so look, the prompt in the background here, somewhere, wherever it is, the prompt is that MAGA is anti-science. And just so I can clarify what I mean by that, I merely mean the following. I would say that a political movement is anti-science if it systematically, 1, rejects or delegitimizes mainstream scientific consensus across multiple independent domains, and 2, it undermines the institutions and procedures that produce that scientific knowledge. And it could do that in multiple of ways, like you could defund them, you could remove independence from them, etc. So given that definition, I would say that MAGA fits the bill squarely, it squarely fits the bill. Do you disagree?
Yeah.
Okay, so which one, or perhaps both, do you think that, which part of the definition do you think it doesn't match?
I want to say that, didn't Trump increase the funding to colleges? Like, wouldn't that go directly against the
I don't think so. I don't think he did. I'd love if that were true, but I don't think he did. I'm trying to remember. He definitely cut funding to Harvard by like $400 million or something.
But he didn't. I mean, that's Republicans are spend less, right? That's not ideological.
No, this was purely ideological. This was in retaliation because Harvard said, no, we're not going to bow down to your like anti-woke stuff.
Are you talking about the Title IX
Yeah. So this was not like a budget thing. This was like an ideological thing.
Right. So, no, it was. I mean, they're protecting women's rights via.
Well, sure. I mean, that's
right?
the claim. But the point is, you said that they were cutting funding because of, they want to decrease the budget, but that's not why. Like, the reason why Trump threatened Harvard, and then I think they inevitably did, was purely out of ideological reasons that has nothing to do with the budget.
Well, okay, so if they're trying to realign science with policy, then they wouldn't be anti-science in regards to this topic specifically.
So, right? I don't know which topic specifically you're talking about, but if you are undermining institutions and the procedures that we use or the methods that we use to produce scientific knowledge, like if you are undermining or canceling, if you're undermining like the granting procedures that we use to, say, determine who gets scientific research funding, if you are cutting scientific research funding from various organizations and or reducing the grant output that you give for scientific research, it doesn't sound like that this is just realigning. This is just undermining the way that we do science in the country.
Okay, and see, this is where we're going to differ dramatically. I believe that the institutions have already been undermined, and the proof is that the consensus is in regards to like the gender definition are anti-science themselves. So that's proof that the institutions have already been undermined and are anti-science.
So how does it mean that science is anti-science? Like, how could
Well,
scientific consensus be anti-science? If by anti-science we just mean that it rejects or delegitimizes mainstream scientific consensus across multiple independent domains and undermines the institutions and procedures that produce that scientific knowledge. Like, how...
I would say that... Sorry, I didn't mean
Do you
to
just
interrupt.
mean something else by anti-science?
I would say that they're anti-science because the conclusions derived used activism and things like re-education camps and
The
professional attacks
conclusions...
to establish the definitions that are used by the consensus. They're not scientifically provided, so they're anti-science.
I'm a little confused. Like, how did the conclusions use activism and re-education camps? How did the conclusions of, like, I can just refer you to a random study on, you know, transgender brains, like here, for example,
right. Okay,
like
so,
where in this study is like activism and re-education camps?
Okay, so that's not those two things aren't going to overlap directly in that study.
Or
right? So
activation
it's
or
picture.
activism or like where is the science? How is the science being undermined by the scientists?
Okay, so you agree that peer reviewing is a big part of establishing the consensus, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if the peer review system was manipulated in a way that anybody that had didn't align with what was being pushed, they were attacked professionally. Would that be an honest peer review system? Or
So if you said, so sorry, can you repeat that? It was a little bit unclear.
Yeah, it was. My bad. So the peer review system has to operate honestly, and in order for it to operate honestly, there must be opposing opinions. And what took place
well, not necessarily, right?
Well, you have to study it, right? You have to study the opposite to arrive at the truth claim, right? You have to establish that.
And just to make it less political, like if somebody's publishing a study on, like, you know, precision measurements of gravity, you don't need to bring a flat earther on to peer review it.
Wait, hold on. Say that one more time.
If somebody is studying, like,
I don't think I would ever think that.
If somebody is like doing an experiment on like precision measurements of gravity or something, you don't have to bring on somebody who doesn't think gravity is real to peer review the study.
Well, but okay, no, I agree.
So like you don't need to bring on the opposition in order for peer review to happen.
You should allow for the publishing of things within the community that provide opposing opinions. Right?
Yeah, so long as the research is conducted well, sure.
Right, and what took place was those people were attacked professionally.
But was their research published?
No.
Okay,
no.
So how do you know that their research was good if their research wasn't published?
It was labeled transphobic.
How do you know that their research How do you know that their research was good if it wasn't published?
I would just go based on I don't really have a good answer.
I mean, like, maybe the person says, oh, my research wasn't published because it was ideal, but like, what, we're just going to believe a guy who got rejected from a journal?
Well, I don't, it wasn't just rejected from a journal, like they were pushed out of...
Well, but that's this whole scientific business, right? You were talking about peer review. By the way, are you talking about Jordan Peterson?
No.
Who are you talking
Not
about?
Specifically. I don't have the names off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And this isn't things that I've studied like that are fresh in my mind, but okay. I would just say that like just looking at the conclusions that have been derived and how they're I would say that it's when you oversimplify things that they're more times than not true. Would you agree with that?
When you oversimplify things, they're more often than not true? No, I would say oversimplifying is how you end up with bad conclusions.
Okay.
More often than not.
Just for instance, reproduction is necessary for a species to exist, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what two things are necessary in human reproduction?
Sperm and eggs.
Okay, so every human is going to be designed with the potential to produce either one of those two things, correct?
No, not every human.
Well, that's the biological design, right? Without flaws. If the systems were to develop naturally and as they're supposed to, they would produce one of two things, correct?
I mean, if you're saying that like, look, are you attributing like some sort of like intention here? Because like evolution doesn't have intention. But if you're just saying
Genetics
like
do.
genetics don't have intention, no.
So your genes didn't intend for you to have the hair color and eye color that you have?
No, genes don't have intention. Intentions are things that minds have.
So when the eggs are fertilized, what information is pulled, like used to develop you into who you are?
What information is used?
Yeah. Like where is that information derived from? Like
there are genes, and those genes function in a certain way.
Right. And so what is that certain way? So they're intended to function in a certain way, correct?
Well, I don't know what you mean by intention. The genes function in a certain way. Sometimes the genes function in different ways than is typical.
Right, and you would say that the non-typical ways are unintentional?
I would say that they're atypical. I don't think that there's any intention behind any of it.
So when you receive your genetics from your parents, it's a random mix, right?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, and then once that mix happens, the DNA is mixed.
Yep.
Then you have a new unique genetic code that is going to be used to develop. That is the blueprint, right? So then the blueprint is going to be, huh?
I was just agreeing with you.
Okay, so that blueprint is going to be like the body is going to develop with the intent to match the unique genetics. Correct?
With the intent to match the unique. Look, you keep using the word intent here.
Mutations happen. Right?
Yeah, mutations absolutely happen. I think
that's why I use intent.
So, but intent implies an intender, right? You could say like, so look, if a gene is non-mutated, say, then the gene will behave in one way, and if it is mutated, it'll behave in a different way.
Right.
Genes are either mutated or not. They don't intend to be one way, and then they mutate and become the other way. I mean, I suppose like that can happen, but there's no intention there. Like it could be that genes behave one way, and then it mutates, and then they behave a different way.
Well, I would say that mutations are unintentional, right? They go against.
I would say that I would say that the entire human development is unintentional.
So then, how would you use the word mutate? That it just changes on its own?
Yeah.
Right. So it's a change that happens on its own, right? Unique from the genetic code.
I don't know what you mean by unique from the genetic code. Look, the changes happen for whatever reason. Sometimes it's like a cell. Sometimes it's like there's a mistranslation when the DNA is being copied. Sometimes there's like an external factor like radiation, whatever it might be. Mutations happen, and that may or may not change the behavior of genes and proteins.
Okay, so I guess I would have to say that species have evolved with the intention to reproduce, right? So there has to be some form of reproduction in all species in order to
You keep saying
maintain...
intention. You keep saying intention. I imagine that this is like driven from like a theistic point of view?
No, not at all.
Okay, so then who's giving the intention? Who has the intention?
The genetic code.
Genetic code is not a person that is capable of having desires or intentions.
That is the pool of data that the information is derived from.
Do you think that like an oxygen molecule can have intention?
I do. Oxygen molecules like reproduce?
I mean, in some sense, I guess they can, but not in like the way that you might think. So,
not in like a biological life kind of way, right?
So in what sense do they have intention?
So the intention of a species is to maintain survival and life existence?
Maybe it would just help if you told me what you meant by the word intention.
It was. It's a good question. Intention means it's plan to develop according to the genetics. Right?
Plan to develop in according to the genetics.
According to the genetics provided by the male and father, or the male and mother. Sorry.
Can you repeat it one more time?
So it would be the plan. Oh fuck! I can't even. It's intent means a plan to follow the genetics provided by mother and father.
Right? Okay, so you just mean like You just mean, by intention, you just mean that the DNA is like a blueprint?
Yes. That's
Okay,
exactly
yeah,
what I said.
sure.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that there's like some creator that's like, I'm gonna put this here.
Okay,
and
yeah, then
that
sure.
There. It's a random connection of everybody has a unique genetic code. Well, not everybody, but like, and it's provided by their mother and father, and that unique genetic code is what gives us our characteristics, right? Most of which are immutable, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if your whole point is merely that humans typically come in two sexes, then sure.
Well, it typically just means that the species intends for us to only come.
A species isn't a genetic code, though. So according to the definition you've offered of intent, species don't have that.
Species don't. The human species.
A species is not a human species is not a plan to follow. The human species does not have a plan to follow what the mother and father donated genetically. Like the human species is not genetics, so it can't have intent in the notion that you've attached. Well, yeah. Well, maybe. There were some very unethical studies in the 20th century that it's not clear if what kind of outcome they had, but yeah, probably.
That's crazy. I would like a link to that. That sounds like a lot of fun. So this is where like I just base off of the information that is like you could just kind of like see at surface level, and that there's things that are provided genetically that are immutable, and our biological sex is one of those things that is immutable and cannot change. So when
sure, if by biological sex you mean by like our genetic sex.
Yes, and that's
okay. So genetic sex, yeah, that doesn't change. Genetic sex does not change. I agree.
That is step one of establishing sex, right? Like that's
genetic sex is one aspect of sex, yeah.
Right. And then there goes to gamete production, correct?
There's gamete production sex. There's hormonal sex. There's sex associated with secondary sex characteristics. So, but yeah, genetic sex is one kind of sex, yeah.
Right, but if you can't change it at the genetic level, then you're pretty much just stuck at what you're provided by your parents, correct?
Well, no, I mean, we have modern medicine. You can change a whole bunch of stuff beyond what your genetics say, right?
But you can't change your genetics.
Yeah, no, you can't change your genetic sex is your genetic sex is, at least as far as I know, maybe there's new modern research that can do this. At least as far as I know, your genetic sex is determined by the time you're born, right?
Yes. And then, so when there's science that comes out that says that you can change that thing that is immutable,
nobody has ever said that they can change their genetic sex. By the way, I urge you to find me one source, one person, even like the craziest blue-haired woke lib on, Twitter or whatever. Find me a single one of them that says that you can change your genetic sex.
Can you change your gamete production if it ever occurs?
Yeah, I suppose you can. Like, you could have your testicles removed, and then you could no longer produce small gametes, for example.
You can stop production. You can never change.
Yeah, that's a change. Stopping is a change.
Okay, I guess I worded that wrong. Can you ever switch your gamete production?
Not with current tech, no. Not as far as I know.
So there's two things that are immutable in regards to sex, correct?
So, I mean, it just is the case that we don't have, like, we currently do not have the ability to change someone's gamete production if they were making large gametes to making small gametes, or vice versa. We don't have the ability to do that yet.
So the consensus is it's not achievable.
And you will find not a single person who thinks that they can.
Okay, so there's 2 out of, what did you say? There's 4 total.
Something like that. It depends on how you count.
Hormonal, and then
there's secondary sex characteristics. These are things like breasts.
Right, which is just like changing surface level.
Well,
pretty much,
I mean, like,
the unethical changing of healthy body parts. If you really want to get down.
I mean, if you want to call it unethical, you can, but generally, if it's consensual, I wouldn't call it unethical. But, I mean, like, that's another aspect of sex, right?
It is, but I would say it's an unscientific aspect of sex.
I'm sorry.
Changing the physical appearance.
We're just talking about how we categorize sex, right?
Okay, so no, we're talking about whether or not it's anti-science the way it's classified currently. So we just
Well, so we're
established that
talking
there are
about sex right
two
now.
categories.
And so at
that
least
are
the definition
immutable.
that I'm working with is there's external genitalia, secondary sex characteristics, gonads, chromosomes, and hormones. So there's 5. So with current tech, we have the ability to change 3 of those 5.
You have hormonal, right? So
Hormones, external genitalia, and secondary sex characteristics. We have the ability to change 3 of those 5 things with current tech.
and so wait, out of the 3, 2 of them are appearance-based.
If you consider external genitalia to be merely appearance, if you consider secondary sex characteristics to be merely appearance. By the way, secondary sex characteristics aren't just like breasts. It's also like receding hairlines, which is like almost strictly like a male thing. It's like growing facial hair, being hairier more generally is like a secondary sex characteristic. These are all like examples of secondary sex characteristics, and they're part of the way that we define sex.
So like I said, appearance. So 2 out of the 3 that were left were appearance-based changes.
Sure. But like that's, if you're just saying appearance as in because it can be seen, like, okay, I guess. I don't know. I don't go around staring at people's genitalia, but well, with, you know.
You're altering the appearance of the body, whether we can see it in public or not is not what I'm questioning, but
yeah.
So this is my issue, is that what the consensus now says is that we can change the appearance of this thing, of people, not this thing, sorry, of people, and it will lead to scientific conclusions that alter or override immutable facts that are genetics.
No, you still don't understand it. So we can change some of the aspects of sex, but most people, there's a small contingent of people who think that like one can actually change one's sex in whole just because we can change 3 of the 5 mechanisms. But no, the point is that people's genders can be fluid, not sex.
I believe that the most scientific definition of gender would be age plus sex, the pairing of 2 immutable facts about
then
an
your
individual.
definition is your scientific definition is in disagreement with the definition offered by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine.
And I believe that the difference is because the institutions have been undermined by.
So how is yours more scientific than the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine?
Because we've just established that it's 2 things that you. Well, we didn't talk anything about age, but if you.
No, we were talking about sex the whole time. We weren't talking about gender at all.
Right. So yeah. So sex is. I don't believe that it's something you can change about yourself. You can't change your appearance.
But we're not talking about sex. We're talking about gender.
Right. So gender.
That's the whole question here, right?
So gender requires sex for it to be established.
I don't know what you mean by requires. Certainly, there are components of sex that are relevant in the definition of gender.
Or what do you mean by relevant?
As in, for example, one of the important pieces of gender is exhibiting behaviors that are associated with certain sex traits. Right.
Okay, so if we can, I'm just curious, if it can be, if you can't define trans woman, man, or man or woman without recognizing biological sex in any capacity, would you say that sex is required to define gender?
Look, nobody's saying that you need that you can somehow divorce gender entirely from sex. Gender is a construct that's built around certain aspects of sex, and then also certain aspects of a person's identity that are not sex related.
So this is where
gender's like a big thing. It's not just like just sex, right?
Right. So do you need to recognize biological sex when defining trans?
When defining trans just means across from.
Well, I say trans instead of saying trans woman and man. I'm just reducing it. So
a trans woman is a woman whose gender is not aligned with her sex.
So you do have to use biological sex to define trans woman and trans man.
Sure.
So do you also require recognizing biological sex when defining man and woman?
Look, that's part of the definition. It shows up in the definition of gender, right?
So no, you don't also require biological sex when defining man and woman? So you're inconsistent
the word
in
sex is
definition?
in the definition of gender.
The word sex is in the definition of
It's one of the
woman and
words
man?
in the definition of gender.
Okay, so define man and woman using sex.
That's a category error. I wouldn't say that man and woman are sexes.
I said define man and woman using sex. I didn't say
You
that they-
can't. It's a category error. Sex is not a way that you can define man and woman.
Okay, so but you also can't define trans women or man without using biological sex, which we just established. So you see the inconsistency there?
No. The point is that we use trans. Trans is a modifier, right? It's a modifier that signals that, like, the modifier means across from, right? And so the modifier there is signaling that the gender that comes afterwards, the gender, man, woman, that has nothing to, I mean, it doesn't have nothing to do with sex, but that is disconnected from sex. The trans tells you something about the person who has that gender, right? It tells you in particular that their sex isn't related to their gender. That's what the trans is doing. So if you want to define a trans woman, then the trans part is telling you about sex. The woman part is telling you about gender.
Okay, I agree. So the trans part is telling you that there's incongruence with their biological sex assigned at birth, right?
Yep.
And it aligns with, so a trans woman would be a male who aligns with female.
Simply put, you could maybe butcher it that way. I would say that it is, and they're not always biologically male, by the way. Sometimes they're biologically intersex. But, you know, generally you'll have a trans woman who was born with XY chromosomes and is has typical male characteristics. Let's just assume that that's the case. So we have someone who was assigned male at birth, who's biologically male, who then takes on the woman gender. Now, the way that you take on a woman gender is the way that you identify internally, the way that you express yourself externally, and the way that you associate with various cultural expectations.
See, my issue with that definition is then wouldn't we have to consider female construction workers that are adults, trans men, just based on their appearance and their role in society?
No, because it's not just appearance-based.
What else? Oh, it's self-declaration.
There's internal identity, there's external expression, and there's cultural expectations.
So self-declaration plus appearance.
Plus expression.
Well, that would be appearance, right? Your appearance is how you express yourself to the world.
No, like talking is another way to express yourself, right? The way that you walk is a way that you express yourself.
Yes.
Like
how you carry yourself. Yeah, body language. I would say it's not just. Well, that would still be. Anyway, if appearance matters, what percentage of okay, so we can establish that there's alterations to the human body that can occur that can justify a change in identity, correct?
There are alterations to the human body that can occur to justify a change in identity?
Yes, right? So like
so the identity usually isn't the thing that's changing. Usually what's changing is that often people will change their body to better conform with their internal identity, right?
Okay. So there's a amount of surface space on the body that can change to justify the change in identity. Like they're saying there's a incongruence. I'm sorry if you don't follow.
No, it's fine. Look, I mean, generally people's there are people who are really unsure of themselves, and so they might have identity crises all the time. But generally, most people's identities, especially their gender identity, is generally settled by the time they're 7. And then that just doesn't change. But what will happen is you'll have somebody with a certain gender identity, and then they'll go out and seek out body modifications to better line up with the way that they identify.
Okay. All right. We're on the same page. What percentage of the human body would have to be changed to robotics before somebody could identify as a robot.
I don't think that robot is a gender or a way that humans can identify.
I didn't say gender. I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not
I don't think that
saying
robot is a human identity.
So you would never. So the answer is 0%. There's no amount of change that you would accept to recognize somebody identifying as a robot.
Well, I think that a robot is distinct from a human, so I don't think that a human could be a robot.
You don't think that males are distinct from females?
Males are generally distinct from females, yeah, in a lot of different ways.
They're very different. So wouldn't that distinction mean that they're like you would never classify a trans woman as a woman because they are distinct? Male and female are completely different things.
But woman and woman are not distinct.
Woman and woman are
like, yes, a trans woman may still very well be a male.
Wait, hold on. I just want to. Woman and woman are identical.
Yes, they're not distinct.
Women are not identical. They are.
Trans
different.
woman is a kind of woman. So you're right. It'd be like saying tall man and man are not identical.
Trans woman is a type of male.
Yes, and a type of woman.
So
it's often a type of male, not always, but often.
Man.
Well, that's the claim, but it's just not what the scientific consensus is. It's not like the view of psychologists, sociologists, and neurobiologists.
Right, and it's those same groups that will use use biological sex to define transgender individuals.
Use biological sex to define transgender. How can biological sex be used to define transgender?
Or trans man without biological sex. You just can't do it. All the
sure, that's fine. That's what the trans does. The trans tells you about the sex.
Right, and then the man and woman also tells you about the sex.
That tells you about the gender.
This is where it only tells you that because not science was used to arrive at that conclusion.
Okay, why don't we kind of get back on topic? Why don't you agree with the scientists here?
Because it's logic. It's inconsistent in definition. I just provided you the reason.
But look, they're offering a different definition. So like maybe your definitions can differ depending on who you're talking to, right? People use words in different ways. But the definition that they're using is totally in line with the way that, transgender women see themselves as women, right?
Yeah, but is it in line with society? Or just
that's not a question of science. That's a question of like acceptance and, social change and things like this. In some parts of society, it's absolutely in line with society. In other parts of society, it's definitely not. If you go to like rural Alabama, probably not. If you go to like San Francisco, almost certainly.
What about like Thailand?
What about Thailand?
Like where the culture is accepted to an extent. Like it's almost a tourist attraction. What do they say there? Do they say?
I don't know. I've never been to Thailand.
But if you've never like had this as a talking point or like discussed this in any way, shape, or form, you don't have to visit there in order to.
No, I'm not really concerned about the cultural norms of Thailand when I'm talking to Americans about an American political movement.
Okay, all right, I'll respect that. I brought that up because it's in the culture there, but they even have a different term completely, and I'll refrain from saying it on the live just to be respectful to your audience. But
I appreciate
that they don't declare that they are women. Like
okay,
you know what I mean?
Fortunately, they speak a different language. They have a different culture. Of course, they're gonna have different notions of these things. That's fine.
Well, but they have kind of seemed to figure out a way for them to mingle with society in a healthy, functioning way, where it's not like forced upon society, where it's like the definitions now align with the marginalized group rather than the majority of society. That's the only reason why I bring it up. Like there's like it seems to be like a healthy mingling and interaction with society. So
who's making it unhealthy in the United States? Who's making situations uncomfortable and awkward? Who's making who's actually like made uncomfortable here? by like trans women existing?
Depends on who you talk to. Honestly, I would say that there are female athletes in high school that would say that they're uncomfortable a majority of the time competing against males, and then you'll also find that there are females in high school sports that aren't uncomfortable. So like it's a mixed.
Wait, but
bag.
to be clear, is it the trans people that are uncomfortable just being in society?
Wait, hold on.
Or is it like the not trans people that are uncomfortable with the trans people?
I would say that the push if I'm to assume, the push for the changes is to help comfort the trans community. Is that safe to say? If they were
Yeah, it's to be more
society,
inclusive, sure.
If they were comfortable,
that's where the social
society,
change is coming from. Yeah.
More. So I guess it's just logically okay to say that it's the trans community pushing the change because they're uncomfortable with society.
I'm not asking about who's pushing the change. I'm asking who's uncomfortable.
Okay, so I would say
who's uncomfortable with trans people existing in society.
Initiated. I would say that trans people are uncomfortable with their existence in society. That's why they want the change.
I see what you're saying. The way that I was thinking about it is that like trans people are people. They just want to do their stuff. They just want to do whatever they're going to do. But often trans people existing alongside non-trans people, typically right-leaning people, the right-leaning people, it bothers them that the trans people ask that they use certain words to refer to them, for example, or that they be allowed to use certain bathrooms. That like bothers the right-leaning people generally. And so I see that, like the way I see it is that it's the right-leaning, anti-woke, whatever, that is uncomfortable by trans people just existing.
I would say that most Americans are uncomfortable when they're put in a position where they feel like they're forced to participate in something they don't align with ideologically.
By that, you just mean like using certain pronouns?
No, I would say that in most cases, that's a good example, but there are other examples where, like the left, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but if they don't align with something ideologically and they feel like they're forced into participation, they will also feel uncomfortable. I think it's a two-way street.
Right. That's definitely true. People are generally uncomfortable when things confront their worldviews. But like in this case, in the case of trans people existing in society, it's generally the right that is made uncomfortable here. Right?
Yes. Well, yeah. I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word.
Come on, you know it is.
You almost got me there.
It is.
They might just be uncomfortable with the being forced, and like I just said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to change my answer in any way than what I already had given. Like I said, I think that it doesn't matter what worldview you have. If you feel forced to adopt something that opposes your worldview, you're going to feel uncomfortable, no matter what the situation is.
So look.
So in this situation, I guess in order for the right to be the ones uncomfortable, they would have to be the ones feeling like they're having ideologies forced on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in some sense, yeah, they are, and like we should. But like, I don't see how that makes it a bad thing. Like we forced, racist white Americans to like share a water fountain with black people, and that made them uncomfortable. Like, okay, so what? Suck it up. They're people too.
Okay, but the difference between removing segregation was it was establishing equal rights, where what's going on with the trans movement now is it's establishing extra rights.
What extra rights are people trying to get trans people that the rest of us don't have?
Okay, so can extra rights come on the reinterpretation of Title IX? There was never a trans athlete that was denied access to participation with their biological sex. Therefore, access to competing with the opposite sex is an extra right that nobody else is granted.
So, to be clear, does Title IX say that people are able to only compete in association with their sex, or that people can't be denied rights and associate? Like what's the claim that you're making explicitly here? Because as far as I can tell, Title IX is about protecting sex-based discrimination, right?
Yes, it was protecting.
And so
you weren't allowed to discriminate based on sex. Yes.
Yeah. So that means that you can't say that someone can't compete in women's whatever based on their sex.
Well, no, that would mean
that would be discrimination, right?
No, so their sex is male, so they wouldn't be allowed to to be told that they can't compete against males. Is how I would interpret.
Well, no, but that's not what Title IX is about. Title IX just prohibits sex-based discrimination in education problems or education programs or activities receiving federal funding, right? So that means that if it is the case that someone wishes to participate in, wishes to participate on, I don't know, women's track or something like that, then they can't be told they're not allowed to based on their sex.
Well, no, the protection was that there was safe spaces for sex. It was like you can't discriminate.
That's not what Title IX's about.
No, Title IX established like females compete against females, and you can't.
Title IX established Title IX is an anti-discrimination law based on sex-based discrimination in education programs, right?
Right. So there was no chance for females to make it onto male sporting teams. Do you agree? So that they.
Well, I mean, it depends on the sport, but like, sure, but that's not what Title IX was about.
So the discrimination would have historically been they had nowhere to compete.
No, that wasn't the discrimination.
Male-dominated sports.
No, that wasn't discrimination.
Okay.
No, look, if there was one league, and that league was just anyone can apply, that wouldn't be discrimination based on sex. That wouldn't be a Title IX violation, right?
You would have to allow females to compete. You would
have to allow females to, try out or whatever, as long as you're not barring people because they're females, then it's unrelated. It's just not Title IX.
I don't mean to derail, but are you anti-DEI or pro-DEI?
I don't know. When right-leaning people say DEI, I have no idea what they mean.
Diversity, inclusion.
I know what it stands for. I don't know what you mean by that.
So, just the argument that you just gave, it's like, so as long as they're allowed to apply for the job, then that's sufficient for inclusion.
Look, so the question is whether or not people are denied access to a sports team or whether they're denied access to work because of XYZ feature. Title IX is explicitly about discrimination on the basis of sex, right? That's what Title IX is about.
I get it's not the causal factor. You can't say you're not making the team because you're a girl. Okay.
Right. So there's no extra right being granted here that trans people are begging for.
So where was a trans girl denied access based on their sex before?
When did I say that happened? I'm sure it has happened, but I never said that happened.
So there was no discrimination leading up to the reinterpretation of, was it Bostic versus Clayton County, or I can't remember, the 2020.
To be clear, if you say that someone can't compete on the sports team because they're male, then that would be discrimination, right?
Which didn't, based on sex, yes.
Yeah, that would be discrimination based on sex.
Right.
So under Title IX, that's illegal.
Under Title IX, it's illegal.
Because you're telling someone they can't do something because of their sex in an educational setting.
So I just want to be clear. So your argument is that it's justified in allowing males to compete against females because you can't tell a male he can't compete against females because it would be discrimination based on sex. Do I have that correct?
That's what the text of Title IX is. Like, I can just read you the opening of the text of Title IX. It says, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Which means that if somebody is denied, if they're excluded participation in some sports team on the basis of sex, then it's illegal.
Okay, so ensuring equal opportunities for males and females in education. So the males had equal opportunity to compete with males. Do you agree?
Are you reading from the text of Title IX?
I just Googled it really quick. I'm just...
So
But
I have
so
the text of Title IX pulled up. Is there a particular thing that you're referring to with regards to equal opportunity?
I just looked up what was Title IX created for, because
Well, we can
equal
talk.
means
We can talk for days about the purposes of this, but at the end of the day, the law is the law. The text is the text. We have to look at what the text says.
Oh, okay, so I'm just key reasons. Okay, I understand. You're reading it literally, right?
Well, yes, which
But
is how the law works.
So historical inequality before Title IX, women were largely excluded from many educational and athletic
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, facing lower funding, fewer resources, and outright discrimination in schools, right? So
Yeah.
so Title IX was established historically to give females access to sports that they didn't have access to.
No, not to
correct?
sports, to schools. Not
Right,
to
well,
sports. It had nothing to do with sports, right? It was generally, I mean, like, if I'm remembering correctly, it was generally about like university admissions.
Athletic opportunities. I just read it, so if that's wrong, it literally says athletic opportunities. So sports are involved in the reason
Okay,
for the
let's
creation.
grant that for the sake of argument.
Okay, so the equal opportunity is still there for a male to compete with a male, because there was never
But that's
a male that was told
look,
that they
the
couldn't compete because they were trans.
The reason why the law was passed is irrelevant to what the law says. Right? The law says a certain thing. It says that you can't discriminate based on sex. It's not you can't discriminate based on sex unless the people of the sex that you're discriminating against can go do something else. That's not what the law says. The law says you can't discriminate based on sex, period.
Are you familiar with the reinterpretation of Title IX that allowed this everything to take place?
Did the text change?
No, the text itself did not change.
Okay, so is it the case that the very first sentence of Title IX says that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance?
A part of it says based on sex, correct?
Yes, it says on the basis of sex.
Okay, so in the reinterpretation, do you believe that sex is synonymous with biological sex, sexual orientation, and gender? Do you think that those three all are represented by the word sex?
No, it says the word sex.
Right, but so in the 2020 Bostic count, or I don't have it, they reinterpreted sex to mean gender identity, sexual orientation, and biological sex.
That's a legal conclusion, not science. We can even ignore that. We can just read the text as it says, right?
Okay, so I understand it's a legal conclusion, but is it an anti-science conclusion? Are those three things synonymous, according to science?
What are the three things that it identified as identical?
Biological sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
No, those are not identical.
So that would be an anti-science conclusion, even though it's a legal conclusion?
Well, I would say that it's like if you're asking, are those definitions the definitions used in the scientific field? No, of course not. For example, like obviously sexual orientation is not the same as sex.
Right. So then that's.
But hold on. I'm actually really skeptical of the claim that the legal claim was that sex is the same thing as sexual orientation.
It's reinterpreted
so what's the court
to
case?
mean all three things.
What's the court case?
Clayton County. I'll see if I can.
Versus Bostock. Okay, I found it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the text pulled up. It is 172 pages.
Never changed. Huh?
Let's look up the word. Oops. We're gonna look up the word orientation. So I guess we could probably just read the syllabus if you want. We could just skim it, even though it's fairly long. So this is the syllabus for Bostock versus Clayton County. So in each of these cases, an employer allegedly fired a longtime employee simply for being homosexual or transgender. Clayton County, Georgia fired Gerald Bostock for conduct unbecoming a county employee shortly after began participating in a gay recreational softball league. Altitude Express fired Donald Zerata days after he mentioned being gay. And then this other place fired someone for presented as male when she was hired after she informed her employee that she was planning to live and work full-time as a woman. Held, an employer who fires an individual merely for being gay or transgender violates Title VII. Title VII makes it unlawful for an employer to fail or refuse to hire or to discharge any individual or otherwise to discriminate against any individual because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The straightforward application of Title VII's terms, interpreted in accord with their ordinary public meaning at the time of their enactment, resolves these cases. The parties concede that the term sex in 1964 referred to the biological distinctions between male and female. So that's what the word sex means in this context. It's just referring to male and female. And the ordinary meaning of because of is by reason of or on account of. That gives some citations. That term incorporates the but-for causation standard, which for Title VII means that a defendant cannot avoid liability just by citing some other factor that contributed to its challenged employment action. The term discriminate meant to make a difference in treatment or favor. Webster's New International Dictionary, that's just a reference. In so-called disparate treatment cases, this court has held that, let me pull this up so then we can all read it together. In so-called disparate treatment cases, the court has held that the difference in treatment based on sex must be intentional, and the statute's repeated use of the term individual means that the focus is on a particular being as distinguished from a class. These terms generate the following rule. An employer violates Title VII when it intentionally fires an individual employee based in part on sex. It makes no difference if other factors besides the plaintiff's sex contributed to the decision, or that the employer treated women as a group the same when compared to men as a group. A statutory violation occurs if the employer intentionally relies in part on an individual employee's sex when deciding to discharge an employee. Because discrimination on the basis of homosexuality or transgender status requires an employer to intentionally treat individual employees differently because of their sex, an employer who intentionally penalizes an employee for being homosexual or transgender also violates Title VII. There is no escaping the role intent plays. Just as sex is necessarily a but-for cause when an employer discriminates against homosexual or transgender employees, an employer who discriminates on these grounds inescapably intends to rely on sex in its decision-making. I think that we're going to go, let me just skim through this and see if we can find, there's a particular part that I'm thinking of. Let me see. When an employer fires an employee for being homosexual or transgender, it necessarily intentionally discriminates against that individual in part because of sex. Second, the plaintiff's sex need not be the, okay, this is just kind of more repeating what it was before. Here too, it is of no significance if another factor, such as the plaintiff's attraction to the same sex or presentation as a different sex from the one assigned at birth, might also be at work or even play a more important role in the employer's decision. Finally, okay, this is just repeating what it was saying before. There's a particular and I'll tell you what I'm looking for. There's a particular relevant part of this, if I remember correctly, that basically says, look, when you fire someone for being homosexual, what you're saying is you fire someone for being male while being attracted to other men or to other males, right? It's not just that the person is attracted to males, it's that they're male while being attracted to other males. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for here. Similarly, if you fire someone for being transgender, it's not just because they identify as a woman, it's because they identify as a woman while being a male, right? And that's the discrimination based on sex that's relevant here. And so I'm just looking for that relevant segment.
So just to be clear, like
yeah,
when
sure.
the word sex is used,
when the word sex is used, they specifically say in the syllabus, and by the way, this is for Title VII, not Title IX, they specifically say that sex is referred to the biological distinctions between male and female. They're not redefining it. You were incorrect when they said that they equated them. It says it right here.
Your sexual orientation is based on your attraction to their sex, not yours.
Being homosexual means that if you're a male and you're homosexual, then it means that you are generally attracted to males. So being homosexual is not just being attracted to males, right? It's being attracted to males while being a male. So your sex is relevant to being homosexual. It's not just who you're attracted to. So that means that your sex plays a part in being fired for being homosexual. Because if you were attracted to females, or if you were attracted to males but you were a female, then you wouldn't have been fired. So,
Wait,
but
hold on,
for
it's
the
because
fact
you're
that you were a
attracted.
male is one of the reasons why you were fired.
It's because you're attracted to the same sex. Has nothing to do with your sex.
That's not what the law found.
Okay.
But to be clear, you made the claim that this law said that the sex of a person was redefined to mean sexual orientation and gender identity, and that's just not the case. It doesn't redefine it that way.
To include gender identity and sexual orientation into the word sex, which is
they specifically say that they don't do that.
Biological sex.
They specifically say that they don't do that. They say that sex is referred to in the biological distinctions between male and female.
Right. So then you can't be discriminated based on your biological sex, not your attraction to the same sex. Not
but the point is attraction to the same sex relies on what your sex is.
So gender requires biological sex, then?
Sexual attraction based on sex obviously requires sex, and being transgender obviously has a relation to one's sex, namely that they are biologically, say, male, but have the gender of woman.
Can you be discriminated against for being a man or woman based on your sex?
No, that's illegal.
Right. Well, but I thought you said that woman.
You said
and
based
man
on sex. If it's
don't
based on
use
sex, then it's
biological
illegal.
sex in their definition.
If you said based on sex, then it's illegal. If it's not based on sex, if it's based on gender, like for example, suppose that you had a person, and this is just like a really silly idea. Suppose that you had a person who when going through hiring, and by the way, this is also a thing, I think. Let's say that they only got applications from intersex people, and some of those intersex people identified as men, and some of those intersex people identified as women, but they all are completely androgynous in sex. If you then only hired the ones who identified as men, at least under Title VII, that wouldn't be illegal, at least in the plain reading of the text. Because it's not based on sex. It would be based on gender.
If you only hired one... Okay. Yeah, this is where I just disagree. I don't believe that gender is something you can declare or change on your own, just like your age.
Okay.
Like that's where I believe that it's anti-science.
Okay, but your beliefs conflict with like the scientific community.
And I'm okay with that. I believe.
Okay, so then you're okay with being anti-science.
Sure.
Okay, I'm glad we're in agreement here.
One group is anti-science, and it's to be determined on which group that is. I guess that's the whole point of the
definitely not
conversation.
To be determined. It's very much determined. But look, you've been up here for a while, Free Nudes, so I'm going to let you go. But thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate the conversation.
That was something. I mean, like, he was polite, but like I don't know, the takes were just something. He has the ability to learn. He seems like he has the ability to learn. And I think that that's probably good. All right, we have some super chats, and we'll move on to our next guest. From Johnson Michael with the $5. Are animals male, female only? If so, are we not animals? Do animals have gender? So if gender is a sociological or a psychological construct, and animals don't have sufficiently sophisticated societies or psychologies, then they might not have this thing that we have. Right? We can have more things than animals have because we are, in some sense, much smarter, much more, sophisticated than most animals are, right? From Michael with the $5, as soon as they mention trans people, you should move on, Blitz. They aren't here to discuss the topic, only their obsession with trans people. Yeah, but like, it's at least worth having the conversation occasionally. From just some guy with the $2, this is all MAGA ever wants to talk about. It really is. They love talking about trans people. From Garba Gaiman with the 5 Canuck bucks, genes don't intend to reproduce. A star does not intend to fuse atoms. These are simply consequences of conditions. Yeah, he was just using it in like kind of a funny way. And so, From Encyphrium with the $5. Dude's terrified after he went to the hub, had a good time, but finished just before the actress's big reveal. Oopsie daisy, you just a little bit gay now. Look, I can't show this on screen because I'll probably get demonetized. However, you can go look up a map of where like transgender or like trans PORN is used or is viewed most frequently, and you'll find that it's the Deep South. It's in red states, which is kind of weird. From Might You Find It Interesting with the $5, to my understanding here, trans woman, gender could be woman. The sex of a trans woman is male, which is the scientific consensus to my understanding. It is. From Darth Vader with the $5, what can you tell me about Ton 618 and Phoenix A? How are these black holes formed? I've seen many TikTok videos on them, and now I'm curious. I have videos on that, so go watch my videos, and they won't be wrong. But that's super off topic. We have I'll give a brief explanation that we have a pretty good understanding that they form from supermassive stars in the very early universe as the seed black holes. Not the time or place, though. All right, let us bring up Sami. All right, well, while Sami's getting up here, Carissa Whelan just sent 20 Dr. Blitz Debunks gift memberships, which is enormous. Huge W for Carissa Whelan in the chat, y'all. That just means 20 more people got access to the emojis, got access to the debate notes, which have all of my resources that I use in this conversation. In fact, if you want to see it, let me pull it up. If you want to see the debate notes, here they are. Has a whole bunch of notes, whole bunch of resources. This is specifically just for the MAGA stuff. And then there's even more for young Earth creationism. There's more for flat Earth stuff. There's a ton of resources that those 20 people now have access to. So consider, you know, it's like $4 or $5 a month. Consider becoming a YouTube member. All right, that person didn't connect. So let's bring up our next guest. Let's talk to John Stone. John Stone, how's it going?
Hi, Dr. Blitz. How are you?
I'm doing all right. John Stone, do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
Sure, go ahead.
It's just a survey, so I just need yes, no, or unsure. That would be great. So, do you think that, would you call yourself MAGA?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that, A, do you think that climate change is real? And if so, B, do you think that humans are the main cause?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Do you think that vaccines as typically administered to young children, like the MMR vaccine, are typically, generally, safe and effective?
No.
Okay. And would you say that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now look, that was the whole thing. I just, just trying to get vibes. So the claim here is that MAGA as an ideological or political movement is anti-science. Now I can define what I mean by anti-science if that would be helpful, but I'm not referring to specific individuals. I'm referring to kind of like the ideology or the emergent ideology that we can see from looking at policymakers and looking at voters. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have a particular contention? I can offer my definition if that would help.
No, you don't really need to. And look, this is all my personal opinion. I'm not disagreeing with you. If you say that MAGA is anti-science because MAGA, for example, would say that the Earth is 6,000 years old, as opposed to what I believe, that's about 4 billion years old, and that MAGA doesn't believe in evolution, which I do, right? Then I really wouldn't disagree. I guess my disagreement would be that I think the left is more anti-science and more dangerous.
Okay, so you're not disagreeing with me on anything? Because that's not, like, there's nothing about the left in my claim here.
I just think the left is far more pernicious and dangerous.
Okay, you can have that position, but, like, that's not the topic here.
Okay. Well, am I wrong to think that, is that why you say MAGA is anti-science, because of the belief of, like, climate change and the Earth being 6,000 years old?
Well, it's climate change, and it's like medical skepticism, and it's like denial of like neurophysiology and psychology. It's age of the Earth, like you mentioned. It's evolution. It's like, I mean, you mentioned climate change already. It is, MAGA seems to systematically reject mainstream scientific views when they disagree with them politically.
Well, look, I mean,
and
I guess
beyond that, they also, not only is it just a rejection of scientific views, because if that was it, then whatever, but also they take that rejection of those views and use that to undermine our scientific institutions and the ways that we conduct science in the United States.
Look, I would disagree. I mean, we can certainly talk about, and again, this is my opinion that, for example, if we look at C-19 and that whole, and that was largely driven by the left. It was extremely totalitarian, and it came from the left, not the right. So
what does this have to do with science?
What is the way? How does C-19? How was that handled? How does that have to do with
science?
Yeah,
that's like policy decision stuff. That's like, you know, how do you handle conflicting interests, and you know that's like politics, bro. There's nothing really science there.
So you think that would this be science? I don't think that young and healthy people needed the C-19 vax. Do you?
Young and healthy people need it? I mean, it depends on what you mean by need. If by need you mean like, are they at risk? There's not a huge risk for young people, no. I mean, like a few young people did die, which is tragic. But if by need you mean it is important that as many people get it as possible to reduce infection spreading rates, then yeah, I could see why one would think that everybody needs it.
Really didn't reduce transmission.
I mean, it seems like I've seen conflicting statements from, you know, scientists, but, you know, we can go find that if you want.
This is what I'm talking about. There was a lot of conflicting statements over C-19, whether it's masks or the vax or social distancing or whatever this is. And
well, do you have do you have like something that backs up this idea that like, oh, like the vaccine didn't actually
well, yeah, I know that in, like, for example, the European, I think there was a meeting in the European Parliament, I want to say in 2022, where basically one of the pharmaceutical companies basically said we never tested to see if the vax stopped transmission. But that was the claim back in 2021. That was why that was what that and you know we saw this.
But this was from this was like based on some sort of scientific analysis, or is this based on just like something that some guy said?
No, this was in the European, I think, Parliament, where they were questioning an executive from Pfizer. Go ahead.
Okay, so like they were questioning a guy who wasn't a scientist in a non-scientific setting, and he said something that is wrong.
It was a woman, actually. It was a
okay, you're right. You know what? I just assumed that the executive was a man, and that makes me a misogynist. Got him. Go ahead.
No, I didn't. I wasn't saying that. I just, but the whole.
No, but I shouldn't have, because that is kind of shitty of me, to be honest.
Well, I mean, look, man, C-19 is really one of the reasons why I have resentment for the political left. Well, and I mean, here, I'll give you an example that in 2020 and 2021, I mean, President Trump deferred power to Democratic governors, and they were imposing harsh lockdowns. I would say authoritarian.
But what does this have to do with the science? Like, look, you could absolutely say that like people were reacting to the media rather than to the scientific consensus with regards to C-19, and you might even be right about that. But the question is not about like policy decisions. The question is about like, is MAGA anti-science? Is the left, whatever that means, anti-science? Like that's the question, right? And like generally speaking, like was the left more likely to listen to the scientists about the science than the right was? And I think that that's like definitely yes.
The scientists were wrong. This is the whole point.
Scientists can be wrong, but believing scientists when they're wrong doesn't make you anti-science.
Okay. So, well, look. I'll give you the example of the mask, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
you're about to tell me that masks aren't effective, right?
Well, this was the thing, right? Like, I actually wore a mask in early March of 2020, and I was laughed at, mocked, and thrown out of my job. And approximately a month or two later, they were forcing people to wear masks. And look, we understand why, right? The Surgeon General and Dr. Fauci, early on in late February, early March of 2020, said masks are not generally effective, are not effective for the general public in stopping C-19. And then later, they all flipped.
Like 3 weeks later, right?
A month, 6 months. Or,
no, it was in April.
A month.
It was in April.
6 weeks. Okay, yeah, about a month. Okay.
It was the beginning of April. I actually don't know if that's what Fauci said. I know that there is a recommendation that you don't wear masks, definitely. But I don't know if he actually said they're not effective at stopping them, right?
Well, they also were trying to say about needing
But
it for health.
to be clear, you understand that the science is fairly clear that masks are effective at reducing or at giving some degree of protection, right?
Yeah, that's why I wore one.
Okay, I'm glad we're in agreement.
Because it would reduce viral load. And viral load, you know, especially early on, the original strain of I'll be careful what I say on TikTok here, but C19 was more it became a lot more more contagious over time, right? That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it depends on the strain, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, so like Omicron was much more contagious than the original.
At one point, I definitely was able to keep track of all of the different variants, but at this point, I don't remember which one's which. I'll just believe you. Oh, he had a guest violation warning, so he's gone. Bummer. I wonder why. Okay. He was, I mean, probably spreading medical misinformation. I actually don't know exactly and I can't pull it up exactly, the transcript of what Fauci said in March of 2020. Because, you know, I don't want to play a video and watch, because, you know, audio will get me demonetized or whatever. But suffice it to say, what is the case is that we know why masks were not recommended in early 2020. And it's because we didn't have a lot of masks and medical practitioners needed them. All right, we have some super chats to read. One super chat to read from Lanad. Thanks for the €5, Lanad. Hey Blitz, listening to you host The Line made me realize I was wrong about which is more ancient between cartilaginous and bony fishes. Thank you. That was a long time ago. It's cartilaginous fish that are older, right? Yeah, cartilaginous fish are older. Yeah, okay, just checking. All right, in fact, surprisingly, despite having over 1,000 concurrent viewers, we have 129 on YouTube, we have 862 on TikTok, and then we have another, that's on YouTube vertical, by the way, YouTube vertical. The verts are a little bit, the verts have a hard time. And then another 567 on YouTube horizontal. Despite that, we have nobody in the guest box. So if you think that MAGA is not anti-science, if you are a MAGA and you think that MAGA is the party of, or is the ideology of science, then you should come up. By the way, there is somebody just sent me, and this is just good to have. I'll add it to my notes page, which everybody should, you know, become a member so they can get access to. Somebody just sent me a, because my COVID section probably could be reduced. I could use more sources here. A source on the reduction of transmission for COVID vaccinations. Let me make sure I can pull it up, and I can just show you guys the. We can just look at the, you know, we'll just read the abstract together really quick, and then I'll bring up the next guest. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Should be here. Here we go. Here's the paper, and then we can just read the abstract really quick. It's on effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccination on transmission. This was conducted in, or this was published in 2023. They say a systematic review was conducted to estimate the indirect effect of COVID-19 vaccination. 31 studies were included describing the impact of original wild-type COVID on disease transmission on viral load. Overall, study results showed the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccination against SARS-CoV-2 transmission ranged from 16 to 95%, regardless of vaccine type or number of doses. The effect was apparent but less pronounced against Omicron. Results from viral load studies were supportive, showing SARS-CoV-2 infections in vaccinated individuals had higher CT values, suggesting lower viral load compared to infections among the unvaccinated. Based on these findings, well-timed vaccination programs may help reduce SARS-CoV-2 transmission, even in the Omicron era. Whether better matched vaccines can improve effectiveness against transmission in the Omicron era needs further study. So, I mean, at least like this is a meta-analysis. They studied 31 different analyses. So it seems like that's that. All right, we do have a few guests in the guest box. Let's bring them up.
Yo, what's going on, Dr. Blitz? How you doing?
Manbag, how's it going?
Good morning. Happy New Year, by the way. I guess it's
Likewise.
short. I guess you say that through the whole month of January if you
Yeah,
haven't
you
said it to
do.
somebody yet.
So Manbag,
I'm ending it on the 31st.
sure. So Manbag,
Or the
question.
30th. Yeah,
I have a few questions for you. It's not quite a survey. It's not like an official anything, but I'm just trying
Whatever
to
you
ask.
got to do, man. I'll
Okay,
answer.
so
I'll fly.
4 yes or no, or unsure questions. Okay. First one. Would you consider yourself MAGA?
No,
Okay.
I
Second
would say
question.
that I do support conservative values.
Okay, so I'll say I'll just put conservative instead of no. Conservative as opposed to MAGA. Would you say that A, do you think that climate change is happening? And B, if so, do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
say yes to the first one, no to the second one.
Right. Do you think that the vaccines
Wait, hold on, time out. I got to retract that. I think humans, they have to at least add to it, but they don't add as much as we think.
So the question is,
Is
are
that
they
better?
the main cause?
No, I don't think main cause. I think the main
Okay.
cause would be like a volcanic ash that blows up in the lithosphere would
So,
be the main
and just to
cause
be
of some
clear,
kind of greenhouse
be
gas
clear,
and stuff like that.
I'm talking about the climate change that's currently happening, right? Not climate change.
Well, I mean,
like
that's just been
simplicity.
forever, though. Can't we just say that's history? That's just how it's always been.
Well, yeah. So like there are different periods of climate change, right? We can look in the data and we say that like there was climate change like 12,000 years ago. There's also climate change now. I'm talking
We
about the
also
climate change that's happening
changed
now.
what we call it today.
Sure.
It was
Okay.
called something
So
else.
I will put no.
So we changed it, right?
So and we can talk
There's
about
a
that in a minute.
consensus.
If
There's
we
a
talk about that,
consensus
we
on
can talk
that.
about that in a minute. But I just want to get through the survey. Is that okay?
Yeah.
There's only 2 more
I'm
questions.
sorry. I
Okay.
talk a
No,
lot,
you're
dude.
fine. You're
Just
fine.
tell me to shut up or something.
Okay. So
I'm all right with that.
do you think that the vaccines we administer to children, these are things like the MMR vaccine, the hepatitis vaccine, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
Yeah, I don't really. I honestly, if people want to put anything like, here's my stance on this. If you don't want to get it, whatever. Don't tell anybody else not to get it. That's the same guy like vaping or something that's telling you don't put that stuff in your body, but he grabs his vape. You know what I'm saying? Like I
So
feel
I'm
like
going to put
that's something
yes.
personal.
You think that so they are
They're
generally safe and
safe.
effective?
Yeah, I was in the military too. They shot me or I'm sorry,
Okay.
they gave me needles in my arm.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You
Okay.
know how it
Last
is in
question.
maps.
Do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
I think the Big Bang Theory is more believable than a Bible, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, that's good enough. All right, Manbag. So that's the whole survey, by the way. The prompt here is that MAGA is anti-science. And what I mean by that is not individuals, but the movement as a whole, which can be kind of established by like general trends amongst people who call themselves MAGA, amongst the top dogs of MAGA. These would be like Trump and his cabinet and like some senators and some Congress people and so on. And so when I say that MAGA is anti-science, what I mean is that particular movement both A, systematically rejects and delegitimizes mainstream scientific consensus across multiple different domains, and B, undermines the institutions of science and the procedures we use to produce science. So I would say that MAGA fits the bill pretty well. The question is, do you disagree?
Yes, because I don't think the science you're talking about's like gravity. I don't think it's talking about, H2O. I think your science is talking about possibilities and multiple hypothesis off of everything that they research and test. And I think that it's a hard thing to say yes to straight up, and a hard thing to say no to straight up.
So, okay, then we can just go over each piece individually. Do you think that the MAGA movement rejects or delegitimizes mainstream scientific consensus across multiple independent domains?
No.
Okay, what if I could give you examples?
Sure. But then
Okay.
can I counter it though and say like, yeah, but this is probably why?
Yeah,
They
you can
say
you
this.
can try to give
Yeah.
explanations for why that's the case. So, first, a very, very interesting survey, a very, very interesting survey is that even controlling for religion, conservatives are less likely to think that evolution is real.
Because of religion, yes.
No, even controlling for religion. So if you take a whole bunch of people with the same religion, they're in the same religious community, and then you ask the people who are Republican/MAGA and you ask the people who are liberal, the liberals are less likely to reject evolution than the conservatives are.
Oh yeah, because they won't follow. So that's what I'm saying. There's evidence that the Bible's real, but I just think it's like a really, really good moneymaker somebody came up with, and man, did they make it good.
But so
Like
the point
that
is
kind of-
it's not because of religion, because
No,
even
I
after
think
you control for religion, conservatives still reject evolution more frequently than liberals do.
I believe the religion blocks free thinking more than
Okay.
anything.
So we agree
Because it blocks your
that,
free thinking.
So do we agree that it's not just because of religion, though, that conservatives are more likely to disregard the fact of the matter that evolution is real?
It would be because of religion that they
No,
would
it's not because
disregard
of religion. The point is even once you account for religious differences, the right-leaning people are still more likely to reject evolution than left-leaning people, even if they have the same religion.
Yeah, but then you're contradicting what they believe. If you're saying that, and if somebody who like follows, you know what I mean, is Catholic and they raised Catholic and they believe it, nobody can tell them different. If they believe in evolution, they're not believing in their faith.
There are plenty of Christians, for example, who believe in evolution. In fact, I think it's
But
the standard.
then
I
they
think
can't
it's the
believe
official.
their faith, right?
I think
You
it's the
agree with me on
official
that.
position of the Catholic Church that evolution happened.
Yeah, but that would mean we came from monkeys.
Yeah.
And you think the Catholic Church believes that?
Yeah, that is the official position of the Catholic Church.
Well, I thought it was Adam and Eve.
No.
I thought God, like sorry,
you know-
I
So,
grew
so
up Catholic and I got out of it.
The Pope thinks that evolution happened.
Yeah, but that doesn't that take Adam and Eve out of the whole fucking the whole picture? I don't mean to curse.
It's fine. Catholicism is not sola scriptura. Catholicism is not a biblical literalist religion.
That's kind of what I go on. So I grew up Catholic. Like I don't really believe it. That's probably why I'm not religious, is because I was Catholic. But I just feel like there's a lot of flaws in that stuff. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm basing it off of. I really don't know anyone else's religion or what they believe, to be honest. Like I would only know certain things about Catholicism, and I wouldn't even know it all because like I said, I kind of was like, yeah, this stuff's bullshit, and I kind of walked away from it.
So all I'm saying is that even once you control for religion, so if you take people who have the same religion, right? So for example, take a bunch of Mormons. This is a study that I actually have that I'm staring at right now. You take a bunch of Mormons. This is a study on
And they
acceptance of evolution amongst American Mormons. That's what
and they asked them all, and they kind of sided with like a half and half.
Sorry, one sec. Let me just download this. Just so then I can pull up. Yeah, so this is a paper. It's called Acceptance of Evolution Amongst American Mormons. And so what they're doing is they're controlling for religion automatically, right? Mm-hmm. So they're only talking to Mormons. And the relevant chart is here. So this is a figure that says predicted probability of accepting evolution by political views and education attainment amongst Mormons. And so they basically generated this chart using the data that they collected, they have a whole bunch of data that they collect, and they generated this chart. And what they found is that amongst and on, by the way, on the bottom axis, if you can't see this here, on the bottom axis, you have educational attainment. And on the vertical axis, you have probability of accepting evolution. So if you look at the and again, these are all Mormons, so we're already controlling for evolution. If you look at the very liberal Mormons, the amount that they believe evolution increases as they get more educated. But the amount that very conservatives believe in evolution, very conservative Mormons believe in evolution, decreases as they get more educated. So if you look at the most informed right-wing Mormons and the most informed left-wing Mormons, the right-wing Mormons, and these are the most informed people, the right-winged Mormons only have a 20% chance of believing in evolution, whereas the left-wing Mormons have an 82% chance of believing in evolution.
I don't know why that is.
Well, so that's an example of, even after you account for religious tradition, right-wingers are less likely to believe in evolution.
Maybe they're idiots. I don't know what you mean.
But these are the most educated people that we were looking at. So that's just one example. There's also examples regarding climate change. For example, even amongst Republicans, and this is, by the way, like wildly surprising, even amongst Republicans, the MAGA Republicans in particular are less likely to think that climate change is real than just generic Republicans. And I can show you the chart for this too. Here's the chart for this. So this is a chart of who thinks climate change is a very serious problem today and for future generations, right? So if we look at Democrats think that, it's like 82 or 92% of them think that it's at least a somewhat serious problem, right? Whereas MAGA Republicans, only 35% of them think it's a problem at all, compared with non-MAGA Republicans, where it's 62% of them think that it's a problem. So MAGA Republicans in particular are more likely to downplay climate change, despite us knowing how the climate will behave, despite us having really, really good scientific consensus on this.
I only say this because I don't think as the United States we're bad. I think we're okay as far as like we do put out pollution. I think we're only about what, maybe 10% of the world's pollution, something like that. Is that accurate? I don't know exactly. I did look it up before. I don't know what the numbers are today. I know that no matter what we do, China is always going to outdo us in that whole pollution number.
What?
And
How does
I
this
know
address
other
what
countries, because you're a lot of times, like, I think people get caught up in this whole greenhouse, like we need to go green. I don't believe we need to do that. I don't think we're ready for that.
Hey, you're
So
doing
I
the
don't
thing that
think
I said that MAGA
What?
people do.
Do what?
Nothing.
I don't
Continue.
think I didn't say it's not real. I just think we're not ready for it. We can't do that yet.
So by the way, humans or Americans emit more CO2 per person than the Chinese do.
Excuse me?
Americans emit more CO2 per year per person than the Chinese do.
I'm pretty sure last time I read anything, and this, like I said, I haven't looked at
It's
this
like
stuff in a very long
50%
time.
or 50% more.
I think
Yeah, Americans
might have
output
looked at
like
this.
50% more per person than Chinese people do.
Yeah, but we're 4% of the global.
Yeah. So like, yes, China has a bigger population. So like a lot of so even though individual Chinese people will emit fewer,
I don't care about
like,
what we do
smaller amounts of
individually. We have less people, so maybe we can give a little bit more.
That's not how that works. Like, anyway,
Kinda does.
but look, you pivoted and I followed you because I have, devastating ADHD. But the point I was making.
Me too, dude. You got that shit too. I have it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't know
what HD is, but I got 80 of them. But look, my point is merely that MAGA Republicans are less likely to accept the scientific consensus than even their non-MAGA Republican counterparts.
Yeah, no, okay, fine.
And that's climate change, that's evolution, that's regarding vaccines, that's regarding gender, that's regarding COVID, that's regarding,
I'm a little bit,
that's like all across the scientific spectrum. We see these things everywhere.
I know, but I
And
think
that's
I
the first
answer
part of being
things.
anti-science.
I feel like I answer things different than your typical people you
I'm
probably
not
have
talking
up
about
here.
individual people who are Republicans or who are MAGA. I'm talking about the movement as a whole.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
And
I
so,
mean, but even God,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was gonna say, even I mean, these are we're talking the majority of the voters that thought that this guy was better than that person, right? Like, I don't know, like people vote on not these issues though. They don't
I'm
vote on
not
these
talking about
issues.
why people vote. I'm just telling you that this is a property of the MAGA movement. That the MAGA movement is anti-science.
I don't think they are. I just think
Okay,
that they
so
have
to be
different.
clear, we have so I have already I've already provided the evidence that the
I know what you're
MAGA
saying, but then again,
individuals.
it's a consensus though. You're talking about a consensus. You're talking
Yes.
about
So
something that
one
some
part.
people agree with. What about that scientist
So
that doesn't? And somebody agrees with that scientist.
man bag. One part of being anti-science as a political movement is rejecting or delegitimizing mainstream scientific consensus across multiple independent domains.
Isn't there scientists that disagree with the scientists that agree with climate change? Yeah?
They are not
They're
part of the
still
mainstream
scientists, right?
scientific
They're still
consensus.
smart. They're still smart people that
They are not part of the
that do
mainstream
that.
scientific consensus.
But why? And why aren't they
Because
like something that
consensus is when you have a whole bunch of people in a field agreeing that something is the case. That's what consensus is.
What if all
Consensus
those
is
people were?
consensus you can think of as like a fancy term for majority.
Would you say that more Democrats go into the science field than Republicans? Would you say
Yeah.
Democrats are more likely to graduate college? Yeah, so why wouldn't it be more towards climate change than not if we have a consensus
Why would it be
already by you?
So it sounds like what you're saying is that the reason why the scientific consensus is the way it is because the Democrats are faking it.
No, well, there's people that disagree, and there's scientists that have data for
and
disagreement.
there's like 1% of like the climate scientists disagree. Like 1%.
But it's not. Is it in stone? Is it guaranteed, or can it
Is
change?
what in stone? Look, the way that we form good beliefs about things that we are not experts in is by looking at the expert consensus. That's like the way that we come to.
I question everything. I question experts and I question everyone.
That's dumb.
No, it's not.
No, it's like everything. Remarkably dumb. Look, if you were having a heart murmur and you went to a cardiologist and they said, "Oh yeah, we can solve this if you just take XYZ drug," then we'd be like, "Oh, but did you go to a liberal school?" No, you'd just be like, "Okay, I'll take XYZ drug because the person who knows how hearts work tells me that that'll make me better." That's what normal people do.
But we're not talking about like our personal doctor. We're talking about something that really doesn't affect your everyday life.
You're right. We're not talking about our personal doctor. But the point is when
this will never affect our everyday life.
When the stakes are high, you trust the experts. So why don't you trust the experts when the stakes are low?
Because I'll be well gone before any of this matters, dude. This doesn't matter to me. Like, honestly, I'll be completely. I don't give a shit about. Wait, but so then
you agree that you're just being inconsistent?
No, I just don't. I don't care. Like, it's not. There's nothing me individually I can do to change it.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the MAGA movement.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do to change it. They're not going to believe.
Yeah, there is.
And you just can't.
Yeah, there definitely are.
You can do.
Sure, there is. There are tons of
policy
decisions that we can do.
People are just going to be like, "Listen, I don't care. I'm not voting for that."
Okay, so then they're going to be idiots and be anti-science. You're right. They're just going to be anti-science. I agree. MAGA is anti-science.
Nobody says climate change isn't happening. They're saying climate change is just something you can't. We're not going to do anything to.
Can I help you with a guy I spoke to whose name was Free like an hour ago who said that climate change isn't happening?
Wait, what?
I spoke with a guy like an hour ago who said that climate change isn't happening. In fact, Donald Trump in 2016 called it a hoax.
How can anybody say that when we used to be half a hemisphere of snow?
Donald Trump called it a hoax.
I think it's used as a hoax. I don't think it is a hoax.
He called it a hoax. So that means that he believed it, unless you think he was lying, which is, not so unusual for him.
Trump talks mad shit. You just gotta feed through the bullshit. All right.
Yeah, Shay, that's a good point.
Look,
Manbag, I don't know if you know this, but there are people who don't believe in gravity.
I don't know. Go from off. Oh, I can't say. Tell them to jump in the air. They're going to land. That's
Yeah,
literally
they're like, that's not gravity.
it's almost guaranteed.
That's density and buoyancy and electric charge and like literally they're like, these are flat earthers. Flat earthers exist. So if you think that nobody thinks the climate is changing, like, yeah, there absolutely are those people. Anyway, it seems like you've just conceded that, yeah, the MAGA movement is generally rejects it and or delegitimizes mainstream scientific consensus.
I say the left does that stuff too, though, with some
Okay, but that's
things,
irrelevant to the topic of conversation.
It
right?
isn't, though. It isn't.
Because the
It's
conversation is
called on
about
both
whether MAGA
sides,
is
at least.
anti-science.
But let's keep it on both sides.
Why?
You know what I'm saying? Because it's unfair to say one side's this and the other side's not, and they're both bad.
Okay, so do you
so
which politicians do you think are more likely to listen to scientists? Liberal politicians or conservative politicians?
Well, we already went over all this. We just did a whole like a half-hour study on it's all
right, liberal politicians are more likely to listen to scientists. So yeah, we're in agreement that
because they're
liberals
listening to the people that already graduated that are already liberals. Right?
You're right. So liberals are more likely to be pro-science. I agree. Now, the second aspect of being anti-science is that the movement should act to undermine institutions and the procedures that we use to produce scientific knowledge. So this would be things like cutting funding, or removing scientific independence, or ideologically changing advisory review boards, or changing our educational content or educational standards. These are all things that I would say that MAGA absolutely does. Do you disagree?
No, I think that I think the educational thing was okay. I'm not a big fan of the Department of Education. I
wasn't talking about that. I was talking about like how they cut our grant funding in half.
Well, the state's got to pick that tab up.
Why? We have the National Science Foundation is a national organization. It's like a national 3-letter agency that provides national funding for science.
Well, then are they still there? The Science Foundation,
the National Science Foundation,
is that still there?
It had its budget cut in half.
Part of the other thing.
It had its budget cut in half, or at least it's proposed to be cut in half according to Trump's budget.
You're on here. Tell everybody start donating to it so they can get their money back.
You shouldn't need to donate to a 3-letter agency to do its job.
You guys want people to go to school? Start donating your money, dude. Stop talking about it. Donate your money.
Okay, so we agree that do we agree that the MAGA administration, which is what we have right now, is undermining our scientific institutions and damaging our scientific institutions' abilities to conduct scientific research?
No, I just think they're taking away things you like and you don't like it.
Well, look, so what do you think it means to damn it? Like, look, if one of the primary ways that scientists conduct research in the United States is via NSF funds, National Science Foundation grants, and then we cut that grant funding in half, what do you think what happens to the scientific research?
Maybe you get more Republicans in it.
You think that you're going to get more people involved in scientific research with less funding?
That was the joke and a gaslight. But
okay.
no.
What do you think happens?
True. Probably the same thing.
The same thing as what?
They'll learn to just deal with the money they have and then make the best out of that.
So do you think that there will be? Do you think that you'll have the same number of scientists working?
No, probably not. I mean, I would assume.
Okay. Do you
not,
think that you'll have the same number of studies being run?
Well, not if you don't have that many scientists, then no. Eventually, not right away.
So by cutting NSF funding in half, we can expect that our means by which we produce scientific knowledge will be damaged.
Or people will just pay for it and go anyway, because that's what they want to do with their life. And it's on them to get that done, not me. So yeah, I don't care if the education department's gone.
We're not talking about the education department. We're talking about the National Science Foundation.
I don't care if that's gone.
Okay, but that's irrelevant. Do that stuff, I don't care. I don't care if you don't care. The point is are they doing it? Are they undermining our scientific institutions? Are they damaging our scientific institutions' ability to conduct research?
No, they're taking the payment of that science and whatever out of my pocket, and I'm okay with taking half of that away out of my pocket. I'm okay with it.
Is our ability to conduct science being damaged by reducing funding?
No, because they're still doing it freely. There's
literally nobody's doing it freely.
You got to pay. If you want to go, you're just going to pay a little more. That's it.
We're not talking about school.
We are, because you're saying
we're literally not talking about school. Yes, we're talking about the National Science Foundation.
You said less people would go to school if that program's cut.
No, there would be less scientists.
Right, because of that program being cut. There's
No,
less
no.
scientists.
Okay, so to be clear, this isn't a program. This is a national. This is like a 3-letter agency. It's not a program. But second, it's not that there'd be less people going to school for science. There'd be plenty of people going to school for science as long as there's school anyway. The point is there'd be less people who then become scientists as their job.
In that specific place, yes, because they cut half their funding.
Right. And when we look at NASA, half of NASA's research funding is proposed to be cut. Will that reduce the amount of research that NASA can conduct?
SpaceX is open. They can jump over to that one.
SpaceX doesn't conduct scientific research.
I'm sure they have to.
They absolutely don't.
Space.
They don't conduct scientific research, no.
If people want to be scientists, they're going to. If they don't want to be scientists, they're not going to. That's
do you think that's so you don't think that cutting NSF funding by half, you don't think that cutting NASA research funding by half, you don't think that cutting the NIH, National Institute for Health research funding by a third, you don't think that that'll have any effect on the amount of scientific research that Americans can conduct?
Are these all government?
Yes, these are all government.
Things?
These are all government organizations. Yeah.
Okay. Again, yes, I think cutting them in half is a good idea because government.
That wasn't my question.
Everything.
That wasn't my question.
I'm telling you, yes, that it's a good thing for the country.
My question wasn't whether it was a good thing. My question was whether or not it would
anything.
My question was whether or not it would affect the amount of scientific research that Americans can conduct.
Yeah, it's definitely no, it's not.
It won't affect it at all. You don't think it'll have any effect on the amount of science that can be conducted?
Because if somebody wants to go research something, they're a free country. They can go research anything they want. It's not going to slow them down from doing that. No, absolutely not.
Okay, so have you ever been to a psychiatrist before?
No. Yeah, actually, I was one time. Once.
Okay. Did they tell you that you're delusional, or is this something you're just now realizing?
Honestly, you know what they told me? They told me I have the best outlook on life they've ever heard, and that if I needed them,
you should probably see another psychiatrist.
But what do you mean?
Because you just said something delusional.
What's delusional that I said?
What's delusional that you said is yes,
delusional?
We're going to. I'll tell you, we're going to cut half of the funding for all of the scientists in the country, but it's not going to change the amount of science that's conducted.
No,
that's delusional.
That's not delusional because
it is delusional. Or maybe you just don't know how money works, which is fine. I guess not everybody does.
Or we just throw money at stuff and it's wasted, and they can still conduct the work, but they're just not going to have much free time to go home and do nothing. I'm okay with it.
So do you want there to be scientists? Actually, no, I don't care if you want it. The point is that people need to work for money, right? That's like a real thing. Scientists, in order to spend their time conducting scientific research, they have to get paid for it. They have to buy equipment in order to run their experiments. And so if it's the case that there is less money available, there will be less people who can get paid to do science, meaning that they will no longer be scientists, and there will be less funding for equipment to conduct experiments, which means that there will be less scientific research. Which part of that do you not agree with?
I don't agree with the part where you say it's going to make them conduct less science. I think they're going to conduct as much science as they want.
Who's going to pay for the scientific equipment?
I guess all the liberals that are complaining that can donate their money to them. Go pay for it, dude. Stop telling me.
Is that to be clear? So you don't think that there will be any effect here?
Huh?
You don't think that there will be any effect on scientific research in the United States?
No, but we won't know for another 20, 30 years, right?
We actually already do know. Let me show you something.
No, I don't think we'll slow down at all. I think it'll just be the same thing.
So there's an interesting piece of data that I just have to find. That it turns out, shockingly, prior to last year, or prior to 2025, generally the United States gets more immigration of scientists. More scientists enter the United States from China and Europe to work in American laboratories, to work at American universities and conduct research there. We had more people coming into the United States to conduct science than there were American scientists leaving to go do science elsewhere in Europe, China, Australia, whatever. However, in 2025, that flipped. There are now more scientists leaving America to conduct science than there are new scientists coming into America to do science. So yes, this is decreasing the amount of scientists that are working in the United States.
But not the amount of scientists in general.
To be clear,
they're now just going abroad.
To be clear,
So we're still getting the scientists. They're just
to be
going
clear,
abroad.
the
is what
question
you
was,
just told
would
me.
it decrease the amount of scientists working
You just
in the
told me we're
United
getting them
States?
abroad. So we're getting more
We're getting
abroad.
less abroad than are leaving.
So people in this country are getting smarter, going outside of our country to learn more about science.
No,
than they
we're
are
not talking
staying
about people.
within it.
We're
I
not
get
talking
it.
about
It's
students.
good. That's a good thing. That's
We're
a
not
good
talking
thing
about
for me.
students. We're
I like
talking
that.
about research scientists who are
Yeah,
going
I like the
elsewhere
fact
to do
that
their
they're
research.
going out and they're finding out science in other countries because I think you can get more done if you
Right.
get
So
more.
why is it that
more
they're
of
not
a-
interested in staying here anymore?
Because they're scientists.
No,
They
no, this
go
was
where
not
the
a trend.
science is.
This was oh, you're right. So wait, are you telling me that the science is no longer happening in the U.S.?
No, I'm saying that the scientists are going where they want to study, and if they don't want to study here, they want to study abroad.
Why don't they want to study here?
We
Do you know
still
why?
have the same amount of people, but just
Do you
a little
know
bit
why?
different. You said it's swayed a little bit.
Do you know why? No, it's not the same amount of people. We're losing we're having a net loss of scientists.
You just said that we're getting more in and then less out.
No,
or
prior
whatever
to
you were saying.
2025, we were getting more in than people were leaving.
How many
After
scientists are we
2025,
short?
After 2025, we are losing more than we're getting.
How many scientists became scientists in the last 5 years, year to year?
How many scientists became scientists?
How
I
many
think that's a category.
scientists in the last 5 years? Like 5 years each year, was it like,
It depends on the
200,
field.
1,500? Like how many was it each year?
It depends on the field.
What do you mean? They're scientists in
Well,
general.
look, so I don't know the details for like all of the sciences.
We're
I know
not
that
talking about specific
I know that
science. We're
physics,
talking
for
about
example,
science in general.
physics graduates roughly in the United States, roughly 3,000 PhDs every year.
Do you not have that number on your head right now? Like you don't know?
Well, I know the number for physics.
This is what you're talking about.
I know the number for physics. I know the number for physics. It's roughly 3,000 a year. At least it was like 5 years ago. I don't know what it is anymore.
Is it staying consistent with that?
I don't know. I actually haven't looked at the data the last 5 years.
But you should know if you're making these claims that it's running out. You don't even know if they're running out or not.
To be clear,
like you're making
any
claims that have no
normal person
data
with
behind it. You know what I mean?
normal person with an above average IQ would know that if you cut the funding for something, that thing will happen less. Any normal person would know that. So
and any normal person
the fact
who told
that
you
you're
something was
saying
red,
that's
they would
not
have
the
it in front of
case
them to show you it's
is
red.
just crazy to me.
But I would have it in front of you to show it's red if I said that. You know what I mean? Like you should have that on hand
but like,
if this is your profession, you should
don't
have
understand
this on
that,
hand.
right?
You should have this on hand if this is your
do you
profession.
do you not understand like how cutting, like, I mean, most normal people with like again, like I said, above room temperature IQ would know that cutting funding reduces the amount of that thing happening.
Listen, I know about plaster casting. If I was up here on your panel, I would know the numbers that I'm talking about. You don't even know them. You gotta look them up, which is really sad.
I literally told you the number of.
That I'm on your live.
I literally told you the number of physics PhDs that graduate every year.
No, you didn't.
I did. I said it was 3,000.
You said around. I don't really know.
I said it was 3,000 like 5 years ago.
I want the facts, dude. I don't want your opinion or feelings or what you think.
I thought that I was the only one talking about facts and you were talking about opinions, but that's cool.
See how we could switch that around on any conversation?
I'm sure we can.
And I won't do that again if you don't. Do we have a deal?
I can't tell if you're being disingenuous about not understanding how cutting funding will reduce the thing happening, or if you're just that
I want
dumb.
the numbers of this. You made a claim that there are less scientists.
Yeah,
I want you to prove
I can
that.
absolutely pull that up.
I want that one. I want that one. I want to see how much less we're getting now. You know what I mean? And it'd probably be within the last year, right? When was
it's 2025.
Yeah. So we'll see what 2025 was, if they had less or more. Like I said, I don't think you're going to get real raw numbers for another 10 years, 15 years.
So fortunately, I actually do have real raw numbers because I've looked at this. So I've looked at this before. I just don't have the thing. And I'll add it to my debate notes and I can show you. I can add it later.
If anything, I just gave you a really good question that you're going to have knowledge of for the future.
Well, I don't think that you're getting credit for this.
I have to. You're looking it up because of me. You're welcome.
I knew this fact beforehand.
No,
you just want the. Wait, no, hold on. Actually, Manbag.
Give me the W.
I actually want a really good question. I actually have a question.
I think you're really genuine. By the way, you're a good dude.
If I show you a nature analysis that shows more people leaving the United States than entering.
I want to know the amount of scientists at the
Would you change your view?
I want to know the amount of scientists at the end of each year. You still haven't provided that. You're still literally dodging
That
this.
wasn't my claim.
You're
Hold on,
dodging
that wasn't
this,
my
and that
claim.
was your claim. Yes,
It wasn't my claim.
You said less scientists.
I said less
Show me it.
scientists are entering
Prove
than
it.
leaving.
No. You said there are less scientists today than tomorrow.
I didn't say that. I said there's less scientists entering than leaving. You can go back and rewatch the replay if you want.
You said that there are going to be less scientists because of this. Now I want you to show me that proof that there are less scientists.
So I said that there are going to be less scientists. I mean, the budget hasn't even gone through, by the way.
Just show me. Stop talking about it and show me the numbers.
Man bag, you got to let me finish the sentence. So the budget hasn't gone through. So if the budget goes through, we will see mass layoffs at the NSF and at universities when we can't provide funding for these scientists. That hasn't happened yet. What has happened is, as a result of the cutting of grants, which took place in early 2025, we have many more scientists trying to leave the US than trying to enter the US. And that is a real thing. And unfortunately, I'll need to log in on my institutional access because Nature is not letting me in. But I can pull this up in a sec.
I'm just saying, you're hosting a debate, talking about science, and you don't know how many scientists graduated with science
I literally told you how many, by the way.
For the last 5 years.
I literally told you,
said
like in 2020,
3,
it was like around, yeah, it was around 3,000. Do you want like an exact number?
I want exact numbers from year to year for the last 5 years.
How will that help you?
Because I want to, or actually, why don't we just do the last 2 years then? We'll see what
how will that help you?
24 was. Because I want to see how many scientists graduated without your so-called.
But we weren't talking about graduation rate.
So much less.
We weren't talking about graduation rate. That never happened.
You said there's going to be so much less scientists. Prove there's less scientists. That's all I'm asking you to do. And you
scientists are not graduate is not
prove
graduation
there's
rate.
Less, dude. You don't have to talk around it. Just prove there's less.
That wasn't my claim. You're asking me to prove something that I never claimed.
It was. It was your claim.
No,
this
it
whole
wasn't.
Entire conversation that there's going to be less scientists. I want you to prove it. I want you to prove to me there was less scientists last year.
To be clear,
because of
there's
this
a
thing.
prediction that there will be less scientists in the future. The claim was that there are less people entering the United States than leaving the United States.
There's predictions about Trump's economy too, and it's looking pretty good right now.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I like it. I like the way it's going.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, I don't even like them, but it's people like you that you say these things and you have no. Like, you can't prove your claim, and I want you to. That's what I'm trying to get out of you.
Here's something that's interesting.
You're going to dance around it instead of prove
Here's something
your claim.
interesting. Are you a U.S. researcher who is considering leaving the country following the disruptions to science prompted by the Trump administration? 75% said yes.
75% of scientists were scientists last year?
75% of the respondents of this survey.
No, that's not the number we were talking about. We want the number of scientists
this is exactly the kind of thing I was referring to.
How many people graduated in 24 as scientists?
How many people graduated in 25? That wasn't part of my claim.
Less people will become scientists was your claim.
That wasn't.
Less people will become scientists was your claim.
I never said that already happened. I never said that happened in 25. I never said that happened.
25.
I never said that happened in 25.
We have a whole year to look at.
I never said that happened in 25.
It did, though. It got cut in 25. Yes,
I never said it happened. It didn't. No, it didn't get cut. It hasn't been cut yet. There were specific grants. Specific grants got cut at the beginning of 2025 as part of like executive whatever. But the budget hasn't been cut yet because they're still fighting over the budget. That's why that's part of the reason why there was a shutdown.
Let's not make the claim that there's less scientists then without having less scientists yet.
I didn't make the claim that there are less scientists. I said that more people are leaving than are currently entering. And I made the claim that in the future, when you have less scientists, when you have less funding, of course you're going to have less scientists.
I don't know. I just feel like you're moving goalposts for me.
I feel like you have the brain of a koala. For those who don't know, koalas have smooth brains. Like, this is like the most absurd statement I've ever heard, right? If you made this claim about any other field, oh, we're going to cut the funding to farmers by half, right? We're going to cut We're going to cut all of our subsidies to farmers by half. Well, then nobody would ever say, oh, but we'll produce the same amount of food. We're not going to have food shortages. Oh, if you cut the funding to sports leagues in half, oh, you'll have the same number of sports teams. If you cut the amount of funding for, I don't know, What for the military in half? Oh, we'll have the same number of soldiers. Anyway, that's going on YouTube. That's crazy. All right, let's read some super chats. By the way, koalas do have smooth brains. Fewer scientists, not less. All right. I'm a native English speaker. I'm allowed to be wrong. From Bacon and Bush with the $100. Let's get a big W for Bacon and Bush, by the way, in the chat. There's like over 1,000 of y'all across various platforms. Let's get, you know, I don't know, at least 500 W's from Bacon and Bush, because that's a huge donation. Thank you so much, Bacon. Let's read it. So I'm socially liberal in just about everything, and I'm pretty far left, but I had a dark childhood, and I have a problem with kids being hurt. I need to understand how gender-affirming care for kids isn't permanent. I'd call, but I think it'd be disrespectful. Look, so I can understand that, like, procedures on children is worrying. Like, if you're not super familiar with, like, all of the science and all of the research that has gone into this, you might be worried, like, what are you saying that they're doing to kids? But look, we do things to improve the lives of kids all the time. Like, I'll give you an example. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like 9, right? Now, I was a child, and and I was given ADHD drugs. I was a child. ADHD drugs have an effect on the brain, at least to some extent. And yet, my mother and my doctor and I all agreed that this would be helpful, right? And it turns out that they were right? This is something that everybody consented to. Now, it's not clear that there are not permanent effects on the brain as a result from ADHD drugs, but we give those to kids. There are also other, I also had major surgery when I was 12, almost 13. I had major surgery, and I didn't even consent to that. I was unconscious, right? But the doctor and my mom made the right decision, right? To make sure that I could live a full life. And so, like, we do that for kids. And especially when they're asking for it, like, I don't know. It seems like if a kid is asking for it and the parents are, like, they're looking out for the best interests of their children, right? If the parents are also understand that this is in the best interest of their child, and the doctor realizes that, you know, there are risks, of course, this can be like a permanent thing. You know, there can be permanent effects anyway. If all of those people are well informed, then, like, why wouldn't we be okay with it? Like, I don't know better than, like, the kid's doctor. I don't know better than the parents. And beside that, gender affirming care, at least like hormone replacement therapy, is generally it's generally reversible for at least a few years. So, like, that's not really an issue. Now, if you have a kid who's on hormone replacement therapy, or like you know, not hormone replacement therapy, I'm sorry, puberty blockers for 4 years or 5 years, then that seems like it's pretty good evidence that, like, this is what they want, right? So I don't know. It just seems like as long as the kid is actually interested, this is what they're asking for, and they've been asking for it for years, and the parents understand that this is, like, good for them, and the doctors understand that this is good for them, I don't know, it just seems like a no-brainer. But it's a valid question. Like, it is absolutely a valid question. And, you know, it's something that, like, we should be careful about. But fortunately, people are careful about it. I'm sure that there have been cases where it's gone wrong, but, like, for the most part, like, the doctors want what's best for the kids. The parents want what's best for the kids. Why are we to question their decisions? From just some guy with the $2, I do donate my money. It's called taxes. Yeah, me too. And look, the other thing is that we don't get to choose where our tax money goes, but we can be mad when it goes somewhere else. So, like, the Trump administration wants to increase the funding for the DOD and decrease the funding for the NSF. And, like, that's lame. I want my money to go to the NSF. From just some guy, he's been trolling you this entire convo. No, he actually believes that stuff. Absolutely, he believes that stuff. And from Encifrium, no, wait, yeah. Yeah, he was something else. From Blancs with the $5, return on investment into scientific research is literally studied and reported on for at least some areas. Yeah, but I hate using that as an argument, because the reason the reason we do science shouldn't be because it makes us richer, right? That should not be about why we do science. We do science because curiosity is part of the human condition, right? Anyway. From Frosty with the $5, caller losing so they get really pedantic and become disingenuous. Yeah, that's roughly what happened. From Tim Welsh with the suggestion for the video topic, call that video average MAGA what is I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word. I don't know what that word means. I don't think I'm gonna call it that though, because that sounds like a slur. Is that a slur, y'all? Was I even allowed to say that? If that's a slur, I disavow. I'm sorry. It definitely sounds like a slur. It means a Western PA person. Okay. I'm gonna err on the side of caution and not call it that. We do have some cash apps, by the way, that I should go over. I already read one from Shay. From NS, just to check that it was working. Thank you for the $1, NS. From Cameron Thomas with the $50 on Cash App. This is from 2 hours ago. I'm sorry I missed it, Cameron. But you can see this in the replay later. For your YouTube live, former MAGA, can't believe I ever. Well, I'm glad you got out of it, Cameron. Welcome to the science side. Welcome to the kingdom of science. Oh, God. From David with the $5 for, has a guest ever changed your mind about a subject? Yeah, there was a guy who came on a while ago. I just was not as well informed about like left-wing political movements in the globally, and he came on and he taught me some stuff. I learned a lot. From Haley with the $2 for I wish they listened to understand. Well, yeah, but that's a thing, right? And from Shay again with the $20. Thank you so much, Shay, for funny as fuck today. My face hurts. Yeah, definitely the intro clip of that one will be the koala thing at the end. Definitely just got to be that. But guys, thank you so much for the support. I do appreciate it a lot. You guys make this more tolerable. We do have a few more super chats and then we'll call it a day. From Bro Beezy with the $5, Bro Beast maybe? But Blitz, have you considered cutting that biased money out of science so we may ascend closer to the truth? Galaxy Brain, appreciate your time. Yeah, so turns out cutting money doesn't help scientific funding. And from Jam Adako with the $5, did you know that Albert Einstein was a real person? I always thought he was just a theoretical physicist. It's an old joke, but it's a funny joke. All right, y'all. So it is the end of the live stream. Just a quick reminder, if you want to get announcements as to when I'm going live, the best way to do that is to either ring the bell on YouTube. Make sure to go subscribe to the Dr. Blitz Debunks video, by the way, because the Dr. Blitz Debunks YouTube channel, because that's where all of the clips will be. But join the Discord server. If you're 18 plus, go to discord.gg/drblitz, Dr. Blitz. There's a great community there. You can ask me questions, you can get the announcements and so on. Aside from that, try becoming a member on YouTube. It's like $4 or $5 a month and it supports me. So if you want to see more of this, make sure to do that. And, I'll see you guys on Sunday for more Unapologetic. Take care, everybody.